Hello everyone, and welcome to another question of the week, aka Anime-chan podcast video, where basically you're supposed to be able to listen to this in the background. Uh, but today is a more specific one. Generally, I ask questions like, what's your favorite shonen? Who's your favorite, best girls from anime? But today is very specific. It's about Dragon Ball Super, not Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, and not the manga, the anime only, because I am slowly going to be reading my way from the beginning of the manga and see where the differences is and whatnot. Probably won't read past where the anime, like I won't spoil myself on the anime, but I do want to see the differences and stuff. In the live chat, we have Yasin, Biggie, the Magic Man, Sotos, Mike, Dark Shadow is here, Thomas for Cities, Hunter, Booty, Nox has joined us, Odinoko, Nevus, Adam said hi, and Hanku was in the chat. What is Yama? I don't know. Jolly D, Joestar, Vermilio, Joan is here, Espada. Let me just quickly read Dark Shadow's message. And lastly, Gabriel, Sad Rebel, welcome everyone. If I didn't give you a shout out, I still appreciate your presence. And if you're watching this back later, I hope you've been having a good week. And please enjoy the ramblings that are about to happen, because this is also supposed to include my review. Because, I just finished Super, what was it, like last week or the week before? No, last week I watched the last movie. And for me, there was no break between, like, Dragon Ball. After Dragon Ball, I went straight into Z, but that is how everyone had a very different experience. In Japan, it went straight from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z, right? But for the rest of the world, a lot of people didn't even watch Dragon Ball. Okay, but for me, it went Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. There was no break. There was no 10 years of, watching AMVs and fan creations. And I'm so sad I never made the time to watch Abridged, because I feel like I should have watched Abridged before I went to Super, because it would have given me a better understanding of a large portion of the community's experience. But yeah, so just keep in mind that there was no break for me. So it was a bit of a, oh wait, and I had GT. It was a bit of a big jump actually from Z to Super. Yes, I had GT in between, but I didn't watch GT the same that I watched Dragon Ball Z or Super. And yeah, just keep in mind my experience will have been different. So yeah, this was supposed to also include my thoughts on Super as a whole, but I am obviously posting my reactions on YouTube, so you will get an idea as those videos keep being posted. But I think as I'm reading, I will add my own thoughts here and there, and by the end, I'll see if there's anything I still need to add. Jolly D Joestar says, at least season 1 and 2 of Abridged came out before Super came out. But they would have been nice, I think, just for fun to kind of get an idea of what the community had before they even knew about if they'll ever get more, because the community probably believed fully that this is the end for years. That's all they had. So I'll never have the same experience, but at least from here on out, I'm with the rest of the community. I'm very excited for more content. I'll just say that even though I had a little bit of ups and downs with Super, it didn't really I enjoyed it. Even like every show will have its ups and downs, but even the ups didn't really make me believe that this could. I don't know. It didn't have that same oomph. But then the movies made me believe, like, yes, this has more of the oomph, and this is something that I will keep coming back for, if that makes sense. You know? Okay. So one more thing. I've only ever seen Dragon Ball and the whole journey. I've went through it once, where most of you have obviously gone through it multiple times and had time to think and reflect and, visit various reactors who all had the right reactions, and you could get hype over and over and over again. But yeah, I've only been through it all once, and I hope to go through it all again someday. I kind of want to have kids, and I want to watch it with them, and then But okay, here's the question that I actually asked. What are your thoughts on the Dragon Ball Super anime and the movies? For example, which movie is your favorite, and whatever else that you want to share regarding them or those. I want to know things like, do you remember if your first experience stayed the same over time, or did some things have to grow on you? Or were there things that you loved at first and then you kind of didn't love later? Like, what was the journey? What are the best parts for you looking back, and what or who do you hope to see more of later? Lastly, if you have any final questions for me, I'll answer them as best as I can, but I'm gonna try to remember. Like, I wanted to do some rankings and stuff, but I doubt we'll have time. There's a lot to go through. Okay, so the first answer is from T dot dot dot. Booty, can you please just check for me who that is? My Discord is censoring it, or not censoring it, but like because of privacy and I'm streaming. It's a setting. So T dot dot dot, someone with a glorious mustache picture, looks like Gaston from another country. TM Colvera. Okay. While I didn't love everything about the show, it gave us Beerus and Wiz. That's a big, big plus. I love Beerus and Wiz. And I love that the world got even bigger. Not just the world, but the universe and space and time is very, very good concepts for me to explore for this show. I know they're technically from Z, but I consider the Battle of Gods movie as part of Super, since both the anime and manga adapt the same arc as the beginning of that story. Another thing that I like about Super is that it gave us the return of Frieza, who is always very fun to watch. That's true. He is so entertaining, and his voice actor is such a big part of that for me. But not only the voice actor, but the voice actor delivered because of the character. He was cast for a specific reason, And I watched a video about his polite way of speaking, and the video also said with each new form his way of speaking actually changed a little bit, and I never noticed that before. But if I remember, I have to go find that video to show you guys because it's really a good video. TM Colavera continues and says, the Tournament of Power ended on a really strong note. Agreed. The last 2 episodes were it. And it was great seeing Goku, Frieza, and 17 working together to save their universe. Yes, 17. I also really like Ultra Instinct. Me too. I like it. I just didn't like the second time they used it so fast. I was very disappointed. I'm honestly very scared to post my reactions to YouTube for those episodes. But yeah, we'll see. But I liked Ultra Instinct a lot. And I loved that we got to see so much more of 17. And yeah, there was a point. I said this before, but now I'm going to say it in this video so that it's saved somewhere. There was a short while after the second time that Ultra Instinct was used. And then there were things like that I just felt were good concepts, but it was underutilized. And I felt really disappointed with the show. I felt like they're just rushing from one cool moment to the next cool moment. And they're just, I guess, I don't know, we've always had silly designs, but sometimes when it needed to be cool, it was really cool. And like with the robot fight and the robot fight before it became this big ass alien monster thing, it became something completely different. But there was a little time where I was feeling very disappointed and people's response was very negative. And I felt like I was almost gonna, I didn't know if I would continue my Dragon Ball journey, because how I do reactions is like, if I love something enough, it doesn't mean I love every single thing about it. There will be good times, there will be bad times. That's just life. Nothing can be perfect for any single person, or for, well, maybe for one person, but nothing's perfect, right? Even someone that you love and you're willing to dedicate the rest of your life to, you're not going to be delusional and think that they're perfect. It's the same with stories. Like, I'm not going to like every single page, but as long as there's more things to love than to be negative about, I'm willing to face people hating me because I don't like everything. So, as long as I love it more than I dislike parts, but I'm always going to discuss both. But at that point, it started to feel like I don't want to keep reacting if I'm going to be leaning more negative, and then that's going to just keep making people angry. So those last 2 episodes were very important for me, because I was almost in tears at that point, thinking that this is the end of my Dragon Ball journey. Like, I can't keep watching it if I'm going to be so negative and people are just going to be angry. So those last 2 episodes made me think, oh, thank God. So yeah, I'll just repeat what he said here. The Tournament of Power ended on a really strong note, and it was great seeing Goku, Frieza, and 17 working together to save their universe. When it comes to the movies, I already wrote my thoughts on Patreon in more detail. Ooh, I need to go to Patreon to find that. Booty, please make a note. I forgot I have Patreon as well, not just Discord DMs. Patreon. When it comes to the movies, I wrote my thoughts on Patreon in more detail, but to keep it short, I can say that as someone who really loved Broly as a kid, I really liked that Toriyama made him canon in the movie. In my opinion, he also made him a more compelling character. That's cool to hear, because I do know about a lot of fans, not just Espada. I saw online also a lot of Broly fans who does not like the new Broly. But it's nice to hear from someone who was a Broly fan and then, he's happy with the new Broly, in a sense, the canon Broly. Let's just put it that way. Because I'm someone who, I was very interested in Broly at the beginning of the movie, and then I didn't really like where it went. And someone in a comment said, it was so difficult for them back then when I reacted to the first Broly movie. It was so difficult for them to hold back, because they wanted to say, just wait. Because everything that I wanted, everything that I complained about in that movie ended up happening or being fixed from my perspective. Like, not fixed, but from me, what I wanted, it was fixed. So, Oh, was that you, Val? Or it was just also difficult for you? Yeah. Okay. So he said, this movie is my favorite Dragon Ball movie in general, and in my opinion, it is the best part of Super. I also really liked DBS Super Hero, especially since it focused more on Piccolo, Gohan, and Pan. It brought my son back. Like, yes. Yes. Toei has improved a lot since the last episode of Super came out. as we can see in One Piece since Wano. So I'm very excited to see the return of Super. Personally, I didn't really like Wano visuals that much. Uh, it was a lot of laser lights and Among Us in the impact frame. Bye, Sotos. This is your moment to complain about the impact frames and you're leaving. See you. Uh, it's just a taste thing, but yeah, Wano was good. Don't get me wrong. It you can, even if you don't like the style of something always, you can still appreciate it for like. But One Piece in Egghead and especially now in Elbaf, I feel like they're starting to learn a little bit of balance. Like, yes, those scenes have their place, but we also don't want to sacrifice consistency entirely. And nostalgia is also very important. And like, I felt like they found more balance in Elbaf for me. So I agree with you that since Super came out, Toei has improved, but I wouldn't use Wano as the marker. That's all. Okay. Then here is Shoru. My experience with Dragon Ball Super was probably different. I generally enjoy shonen series, even the mid or the messy ones, especially in manga form. Right now, I'm loving The God of High School manhwa, and apparently this is one of the worst. As long as the cast is enjoyable and I'm invested in the characters, I can have a good time, even if some arcs are not that great. I think the original Dragon Ball and DBZ already did such a good job building a cast that Super could lean on that, which is why I never expected it to completely reinvent them. Growing up, I watched DBZ in the Arabic dub. Later, I saw a few scenes in Japanese, and I even watched the Broly and superhero movies before I had any proper super context. After that, I decided to experience everything in order. OG Dragon Ball, which is my favorite. I revisited parts of DBZ. I read the DBS manga. Then I watched the movies again. And then I watched the super anime and finally rewatched Broly and the superhero. I love that you can recount your whole journey like that. That's very, very cool. It's like having a collage of, like, I went to Japan for 2 weeks, and if you have a collage to look back on, it kind of captures all the best moments just to kind of overview like that. It just gives you a flow. I don't know. I like stuff like that. So that was your journey. You can step back and look at it like that. Because of that, I went into Super with the right expectations. I never really hated it. Sure, there are some episodes with pretty rough animation and artwork and weird pacing and the narrator explaining without showing, but I wasn't too bothered. I've seen worse in other long running shonen like Naruto. Even though Naruto was definitely more consistent overall and had more standout, beautifully animated episodes. Ah, at least you acknowledge that part because I was about to say. Overall, Super didn't make me love Dragon Ball or its characters more than I already did. It was simply a fun continuation of a world and a cast I already cared about. I enjoyed most of it without taking every flaw too seriously. Are you saying I took it too seriously? I kid. Um, I'd like to say, since I recently watched One Piece Heroines episode, just because it's characters that I like and already am attached to, I don't necessarily want more just for the sake of having more. There's personally for me, if I really love a cast and a story, it has set the standard for itself. So that's where I would defer. Where's my comb? Um, I'm not that. difficult of a person to please, honestly. People think I am, apparently, just because I always have good and bad things to say, almost always. But even stuff like Hunter x Hunter, I mean, I gave it an 8 out of 10, even though people think I hate it. But I can enjoy most things. As long as I go into it, I know what genre it is, I know what kind of show it is. But for me, that's why I watched Dragon Ball, I watched it, and then so I had a standard. I'm not just going to accept whatever you feed me from there. But I think a lot of that also has to do with just my expectations on, not the expectations, or I guess my prejudice about big corporations like Toei that want to make more money, and I am willing to pay. I want to buy the manga, I want to buy the merch, I want to, as much as I can afford, I want to support the creators that I love because they created these characters that I love. But when I start feeling like you're not making this for the fans to have something to enjoy, and then we want to spend money, if you're bypassing making something that the fans, it's for the fans, this is why we loved it. Like, if you're bypassing, just skipping to the fact, like, how can we sell more merch, how can we make more money, when I start getting that vibe, I guess, and that's not to say that it's objectively true, I'm just saying that's the vibe I got in parts. I think at some point it just felt like they don't care about making, because I know you can make good shit. So make good shit for something as great as Dragon Ball, for something as iconic. The word that has been thrown around since the very first episode of Dragon Ball, because it is iconic. So if you're gonna drag this back after how many years was it? I need you to do it justice. I need you to respect it. I need you to respect the characters. I need you to respect the fans that kept the hype alive for all this time that there was no new content. And I just felt like, I don't know, it didn't always feel like they respected what got them there, and they just wanted to make more, which is fine because I want more. But they had good ideas, and then they just kind of like, it's like when you get an assignment that you have to hand in on 2 weeks from now, and then you have a really good idea, and you tell yourself, you know what, this is going to be easy to write, there's so much ideas here, so I'll wait until next week. And then there's a few things that happen, and now you can't get started because there's some other drama, and now you have like 2 days. Shit. And now you have all these good ideas, but you have to rush through them. And then at the end of the day, wouldn't your teacher, if you're a smart fucking kid, wouldn't your teacher be disappointed? Wouldn't your parents be disappointed? Like, I know you're better than this. Like, that's kind of the feeling. That's the kind of feeling that I had here and there. But like I said, the framework was great from start to finish, and I mean, we had the beers, we had was, so happy overall. It's just, I think that, yeah, for me it's not so easy to I'll just accept whatever as long as it's fun. I don't know. But there's more to discuss there, but I have to make some progress. Okay, my favorite anime arc, according to Shoru, is the Broly Saga, while my favorite movie is Superhero. My favorite anime arc is the Broly Saga, while my favorite movie is Superhero. Huh? Broly is, oh, Beerus. Oh, Shori says, okay, my favorite arc is the Beerus Saga in the anime, while my favorite movie is the superhero movie, which focuses on Piccolo, Gohan, Pan. I'm definitely biased because Gohan and Trunks have always been among my favorite characters. As for the manga, my favorite arc is the Future Trunks arc, which is a Goku Black arc. Ooh, I'm very, very, very excited to read that in the manga. because I was not loving this. I guess it wasn't the whole arc, but yeah, parts of that arc I was really frustrated by. Looking ahead, I'd love to see more focus on characters outside of Goku and Vegeta. Dragon Ball has such a large cast, and I always enjoy it when characters like Gohan, Trunks, Piccolo, or even some of the less used fighters get meaningful moments to shine. Yeah, the superhero movie gave us, how to say, it showed us we can be invested in arcs where Goku and Vegeta don't feature. Like the movie made less money. Every movie, as far as I remember, has made more money than the previous one until like the Broly movie was it set a whole new standard. And then the next one did go down, but it was still what like the highest movie besides the Broly one. I do think that people are going to be less invested here and there, but on average, I think that they can fully do arcs where it focuses on other characters, and they should risk that. I really think they should. Superhero is the best slice of life that DB gives us, says Doji. Okay. Vermilio says, I was thinking about sending you here the message I sent you in the DM, but since you're going to read it during the stream, I'll just leave it there. So let me read that now because I'll read Vermilio's DM here. Okay. So this is about, if you're here, let me know if there's something before this, but I don't think that there is. It starts with the DBS Broly thoughts. So, regarding the design and visuals, I love the art style a lot. The artist behind it is Naohiro Shintani. He was chosen by Akira Toriyama to be the animation and art director of the movie because of his drawings are very similar to Akira's. Akira's, that's such a, I never heard anyone say Akira's, like it's Toriyama's. I forgot that, yeah, his name's Akira Toriyama. Modru! Thank you. Can someone DM me about the alerts, the bits alerts that don't work? Thank you. Happy Wednesday. We're reading Vermilio's thoughts about the Dragon Ball Super movie. His drawings are very similar to Toriyama's. And like you said, it does remind me a lot of the old Dragon Ball, but it also blends with the DBZ style. The characters' faces are a bit rounder with very little shading. This makes the art simpler and also follows or allows the animation to be more fluid. What? Why are we freaking out? Don't read it. I sent it to you in the anime channel. Well, I can read it now or I can read it later. He sent this DM to me on. I thought I was reading a spoiler. What do you mean he said don't read it? Here it says, since you're gonna read it during the stream, I'll just leave it there. So I went to read it here. Why are we freaking out like I'm reading a spoiler? He sent this to me on the 2nd of July. This is before anyone else's messages. So it is in the right order. About the super movie. So anyway, here is the art example. Did he rewrite it or did he copy and paste it? I don't mind reading it now because you sent, unless you rewrote stuff, then I'll read it in the chat. But you are still first, doesn't really matter. So here is his thoughts about the script. One of the things I liked most about the movie was the exploration and depth of how Frieza's relationship with the Saiyans worked. You could see that the Saiyans didn't trust Frieza from the very beginning, especially because he was, in fact, a threat to everyone. They only obeyed him because they were afraid of being eliminated if they disobeyed any order, just like a real dictator. For me, the weak point of the story is not showing the real reason why Frieza destroyed Planet Frieza, which was the conversation he had with Beerus, as shown in the manga. The movie still makes it seem like he came up with the idea to destroy Planet Vegeta on his own because of the emergence of the Super Saiyan. So people who haven't read the manga will still have this small part of their script in their minds. Anyway, what I'm saying isn't actually a criticism. I just think they could have shown a scene with Frieza and Beerus talking about it. We talked about that during a manga read along. We actually talked quite a lot about. Man, I wish I could share that part of the conversation because some people were very unhappy with the fact that Frieza was made to look lesser. I don't remember. We have to maybe I can find that part of the read along and just clip it or something. Because there is a very good conversation regarding the Saiyans being eliminated and Frieza's reasons why he did that. Because some people didn't like that Frieza was told. And I argued that they weren't necessarily, he wasn't told as if, but we'll get into that at another point. We might have to do a part 2, guys. I'm sure. Next week, part 2. So about Bardock and Goku. In my opinion, this is where we get to the most controversial part of the movie. It's the retcon of Bardock himself sending Goku to Earth out of concern for his son. I wonder if it's like, I was wondering about that. Like, did you interpret it, not you specific Vermilio, I mean you guys. Did everyone immediately interpret it as, oh, my son? Or it's a basic survival instinct for any, we all want to survive, right? Even if it's through our offspring, or not just specific offspring, but obviously the closest offspring, or the closest, it's going to be your own children, but also just children in general. That's why you want to take care of children. But I didn't immediately feel like it's like, oh, my son, I have to let my son. It was more like a survival thing. There's a word for it, but I don't know what the word it is. But I didn't really think, for me, my idea of Bardock didn't change much after the movie, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it was a bit weird for me to see, like, the wifey cooking at home, and, like, it was a bit weird, but I mean, people had to eat. But it didn't change too much, I guess, for me, about Bardock specifically. I think the story is interesting. It's not bad. My biggest problem with it is that it's literally a copy of Superman's story. Oh, I kind of like that because I always knew Dragon Ball was inspired by two things mainly that I knew about. Number one was Journey to the West, and number two was Superman. So I kind of like that. He was sent to planet Earth because it was a suitable place for a low-class warrior to have no trouble dominating and destroying everyone. Wait. They took away all the uniqueness of how Goku went to Earth. He was sent to planet Earth because it was a suitable place for a low-class warrior to have no trouble dominating and destroying everyone, and then sell the planet for a great price. Makes sense. I know the idea of Saiyans being evil by nature is trash, and I'm glad Toriyama corrected it by showing us the Saiyans are evil because of how they're raised from childhood and not by nature, as if they were demons. But even so, I think he could have been more creative in making a unique story about how Goku came to Earth. I think he could have taken some elements from the Z era Bardock and just changed Bardock's personality a bit. To repeat, I don't think the story is bad, I just think it could have been more creative. If he had a little bit more time, he might have done it differently. But I think it's very difficult for an author, obviously, will grow with his story, but then what he can fix in retrospect. And most authors never get that opportunity to fix anything. So he was offered a chance with this movie, and I think he did the best he could. It was a pretty long movie, but it could have been a longer movie. You know, there's a lot that to explore in that movie, but it's a Broly movie. It's not a Goku movie. So I think I understand what you're saying. Uh, but I guess that's the best he could do because it was already a Superman inspired character in a way. So I guess he just leaned into that and just kind of fixed a big problem, which was, Saiyans are inherently like programmed to be bad people. Like they're not. They never were. And honestly, that was pretty clear. It was always pretty clear if Goku could bump his head and be raised different. I don't know, it was always kind of clear, but he just emphasized it more. I like that they were evil savages by nature. I don't think that they were. I don't think that they were. They were there were vicious cultures in history. And if you take how to say if you take a group if you zoom in on a part of history like what is that Han dynasty, Attila the Hun or whatever, if you zoom in on that part, oh yeah, this is an evil, violent, horrible race. Like if you zoom in on that part, it might seem that way, but I don't think that that's something that Toriyama would have ever actually like. You know that other guy, Zarbon or Zar, the one who hated mortals, and I don't remember what it translated to. Was it mortals? Yeah, he hated them because, well, if you look at a lot of parts of our history, we're a pretty shitty. We can look pretty shitty, and the Saiyans were just really, really strong. So it was like shittiness on high. But I just don't think that Toriyama is the kind of person who ever wrote like, yes, that is their inherent nature. Like, because where do you see that? Where do you even in nature? Like, what in all the philosophical ideas brought up in not just Dragon Ball but multiple shonen and stuff. And I mean it's about the chi and all these things. There's a lot of like martial arts. Where does it ever say there's this thing or person and it's completely bad? Like it just goes against everything else in Dragon Ball. So I just don't believe that one of the major components of the story, the Saiyans, everything revolves around Goku and the Saiyans, and like that's the whole story. So that's one of the central keys. But then you have all this other stuff inspired by different martial arts movements and stuff. I just never got the feeling that Toriyama truly believed, yes, Saiyans are inherently evil. It was always very clear to me at that point, sure. They were very, very strong, and in general, in our history, strongest nations were often the most cruel. So it explores that idea, but that doesn't mean at any point in history, even at the most cruelest groups of people, not everyone was ever like that. It's what culture you're raised in, not you're born with a specific set of programs. The problem is they had similar to Dragon Ball, similar to Superman. These babies were born in pods. At that point, they might have already been programmed to emotions don't matter, it makes you weak. In Superman, I mean, they were born, as far as the one movie showed, they were born in they were programmed with who they were, what class they were, based on, I don't know what research they did, what statistics they pulled, how they judge these babies and who gets to do what. But they were programmed in the little pods by the society, not born, not programmed by nature. There was like, why? Where in Toriyama's huge body of work has he ever shown to be the kind of person that believes in, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like Toriyama to me. I never really thought that that's what they were. It was just, for me, Saiyans at that point in history were very strong and were kind of the strongest ones defeated the weaker ones, and they were the ones that controlled society, programmed society, use technology to even program the babies to go out and destroy from their birth. That's not, and they have like maybe a trigger that makes them this mindless monkey. Like maybe that's the closest thing you can get. But even that can be brought under control with the right, I don't know, education, training. But I never once thought that Toriyama wrote Saiyans as objectively evil beings that were born that way. Vidmilio, that's bullshit. The fact that Goku arrived on Earth as a child and hid his head enough to forget his wild side proves that Saiyans were, in fact, evil by nature. Tell me again how you don't listen to anything. Like, this is the second time since last week. No, Sunday. You don't listen. You don't listen to hear and understand. You listen only to respond. You're already typing you have your personally held beliefs, and that's fine. But it's not, in fact. I was just talking about, it's inspired by Superman. In Superman, they were programmed. The children were programmed. They were not born that way. They took away, they made it unnatural. Unless you can find a place where Toriyama said, yes, evil by nature, and I changed it later, like, or did he expand on the truth? Did he make it more clear for the people who can't think further than their nose? Find me the article and then I'll be like, oh, I see. Yes, it's a fact. But you can't say fact just because that's how you feel and that's what you've established to be true for yourself. Those babies were born into pods. They had science behind they took the Sufurian science. You don't think the strongest Saiyans decided then, let's eliminate the human factor. Women don't give birth anymore. We make them in these little pods. We program them. They are this kind of fighter, that kind of fighter, scouter, whatever the fuck we want to program this as. And the leader gets to decide that. We saw King Vegeta decide, no, Broly looks a little bit too strong. He can fuck off. I don't want him to threaten my... I don't take articles seriously, mostly because I hold on to the idea that if it's not in the story, it's unfair to make the reader consider it. I like my own interpretation, but I don't call it a fact. I just don't like when someone else calls their interpretation a fact, unless they can at least back it up by the author's own words. But at the end of the day, an author is not in control about how people interpret their story either. So someone can paint a waterfall with fairies at the bottom and say it's meant to convey this and that about the earth. But if I interpret it a different way, that's, you have to be okay with that as an artist also. And as a viewer, if someone else interprets something differently, you have to be okay with that. But if we're talking about facts, at the very least, you need an article. Yassine Biggie the Magic Man says, Broly is the example of Saiyans are not evil by nature. He did not hit his head. He was just following his abusive father's orders, but never did anything evil. That's another good take. That shows something different from what someone established as fact. It was ambitious before, but with the new stuff he added in Broly and Minus, I think the head hit was more so that he could forget about his parents and the little society he had experienced to that point, not because of evil by nature. At least that's how I interpret it. Same. The hitting his head, I think they were to some extent. Have you never heard about pregnant women who play classical music so that their children's brains? I hate when I get so heated, but I hate when people try and implant something on me like fact, that word fact, based on what? Okay, but anyway. Have you never heard about women who are pregnant who play classical music and it affects the development of the child's brain? Like, you have to be so small-minded to think that you can't to some extent influence a child's development before they're born. Sorry, it's not small-minded. It's just ignorant about how the world works, how the human body works, and how the brain works. So, no, I don't think we're going to move on now because it's too much. And like I said, we'll have a part 2 where we can discuss this in more depth. But I do not think it's a fact. I will concede that you can believe it if you can find somewhere where Toriyama said that it used to be that way. But I just don't see it in the rest of his work. And I'm talking about before it was retconned later. For me, it was never retconned. For me, it was just explained more clearly so that the other people who never could see it from the beginning kind of understood it. He's not the kind of author who believes anyone is born evil. Anyway, believe what you want. Broly. Finally, about the main character of the movie, I say with complete confidence that this Broly is much better than the Z version. For me, that's funny because his character, even in the first movie, was kind of proof that Saiyans were not born evil. Funny that, but anyway, and then it was doubled down in the new movie. The biggest proof that nostalgia makes people blind is seeing a fan say the Z version is better, because Super's version simply has a well-built backstory. More depth, he's more powerful. The guy literally held his own against SSB, Goku, and Vegeta together, and his reason for hating is much more justified. Z Broly is a great filler villain. I'll admit that, but they took him and turned him into an even better character so he could contribute more to the story. So when I said earlier that I read about other people who disliked the Super Broly, I read about some people saying, we often joked about how, Goku cried next to him and he held a grudge, that became his Kurosaki-kun moment. But one of the comments actually said it wasn't that Goku was crying, it was that a lesser being next to him dared to keep fighting. Like, that annoyed him. Like, that offended his very being. Like, this disgusting, pitiful creature next to me dares to want to exist, or something like that. They explained it a bit better, which I was like, that's a better reason. But for their version or their idea of who Zed Broly was. But that was never my want for his Zed version. So yeah, but I just wanted to give them that. Piccolo was claimed to be born evil and born out of revenge of his father, but he's now babysitting his father's killer's granddaughter. If this isn't a sign that Toriyama believes no one is born evil and can change, I don't know what is. The thing that doesn't compute for me the most is in the idea that Toriyama would write any race to be inherently of any moral alignment rather than culturally inclined. It's too superficial, even for a simple shonen story. But that's what his whole body of work says to me. If you understand this, I hate saying that, but if you care about the story at all, if you care about the author, you'll just, oh yeah, that's, they would never believe that. And even when you look at our own history, you can look at the most vile, cruel groups of people, and even though we don't remember, we can't, the random, like, you only remember the worst, you only see the worst. How to say this, but it's never true. It just is, it doesn't make sense, Val. I guess it doesn't compute, and I'm surprised that people really thought that Toriyama wrote it that way. I don't know. DBZ Broly was never clever enough to form that idea as an adult. Imagine as a one-day baby. I don't. At least, yeah. Okay, then there's a ReZero review, which I will get back to later. I guess the rest I can read from the post. I mean, from the chat here. So, Magic Man of No Jemia. The experience with DBS started day one when it was airing on Fuji TV. Since it didn't come to any official service until the end of the Goku Black arc, I always watched it live on Fuji TV itself, together with many of my online friends. It was genuinely so amazing and exciting to watch every week together with so many people live, and it brought the fun inside joke for the fandom because of certain chocolate biscuit ad playing during every break each week. It always aired for me at 1 or 2 a.m. and then on Crunchyroll. When it eventually got on there, it was like 2:30 or 3:30. That's so funny. It reminds me of the World Cup at the moment. Like, it's so fun, even though I'm not really watching, but I'm here and there I follow the scores, and here and there I follow the memes, and it adds a lot of depth to an experience when you get to enjoy it with others. And you have inside jokes and all and other things that make it fun. So it kind of enhances the experience for sure. DBS was the first anime outside of Naruto Shippuden that I actively watched week to week. Of course, I had already watched everything Dragon Ball related and played almost every game, but for the first time, I watched DB live, and I will never forget that experience. DBS, of course, had its faults, especially on the animation side, but it made me get interested in animation, and I've learned many of Toei's animator styles because of that. Wiz, of course, became my favorite Dragon Ball character, and I love him so much. Many of the minor characters also grew on me over the course of rewatching Super a million times at this point. I sadly never got to watch the DBS movies in theater because they were limited and rarely aired in Belgium. It's something I'm sad about because I know that my experience would have been incredible. My favorite of the two is Superhero because it gave us Piccolo as an actual main character for once. My favorite part of all of Super is, funny enough, not the fights or the transformations, but certain slice of life character moments. My favorite being Goku and Piccolo chilling on Gohan's house with Pan. It was a small, but it showed a lot. I'm looking forward to the most. I'm looking forward to the most is the upcoming season 2 of DBS with the next arc. Not gonna go into details, but I've been waiting around 6 to 7 years for it. I genuinely hope that we do get more slice of life because, in my opinion, that's where DBS has shined the most. That's a very relatable message because I also really enjoy the slice of life moments. And we still haven't figured out which movie Hanku went to see, right? Cause I remember I think it was when we just moved in here, but I'm not sure. Hanku went with Joey, and Joey went with some friends from college, and they were all DB Dragon Ball fans. And one of the movies came out at the cinema, and they went to watch it, and then they went to play laser tag. Oh, it was Superhero. It can't have been Beerus. It was too long ago. I don't. So he saw Ake. He confirmed it with Joey. Okay, so it was Superhero. So he did all he mentioned to me back then is a cat on an. But was Beerus in Superhero? Oh, maybe the part where Goku and Vegeta were fighting on his island, his planet. I fully agree about the family-focused episode. Super did that very well. You know what also did it well for me? That one part of GT where, you know, the end where the photo and everything, like Dragon Ball in general, some of the best parts were, yeah, family moments, slice of life moments. But we always know that it's building up to another fight, or it's building up to another, not just fights, but Tenkaichi Budokai and stuff. Like, we all love those moments, but the heart of the show is always the characters. And like, I loved farming Goku. I love that Satan gave Goku all that money, and then he was allowed to train again because stuff like that. That's what gives the characters something that the guy from Solo Leveling will never have, which is heart. Sorry. He has a little bit of heart, but he with his mom and stuff, that was nice. But Dragon Ball has so much more because we get to spend so much more time. And of course, it's not fair to compare. I was just trying to convey an idea. But yeah, that's a much shorter anime. So it's not fair to compare, but I just wanted to convey, like, that's why the hype is that much more hype, because we know these characters and we love these characters and we love them for who they are as people, not just as fighters. So for example, think about the World Cup again. I have no investment in football, but when Japan is playing, when South Africa is playing, freaking Holland with Erling Holland, I don't know how to say it, but I was invested for specific people, so you have to be invested, right? And that's what I'm trying to get at. The character moments, the family moments, the slice of life, that makes me invested. By the way, happy birthday to Val. Sorry, I can't play any specific song. I can play this one for you because it won't get copyright strike. Ooh, I forgot it's your birthday and you got a key. I hope you get more before midnight. Everyone celebrate Val's birthday. Can you say how old you are? What year is this for you? And you're spending time with us. That's so nice. Are you planning anything for the weekend? 34! Oh, you're just 1 year older than me. Hey, Jolly D. Hey, 34 is not old. 34 is the new 24. Shush you. Shush, birthday person. Okay, next up is a huge wall of text. From Booty, my mod, one of my mods. Ever since the Battle of Gods movie was announced, I knew we weren't getting another DB zit. My point of comparison has always been GT. I've always felt like GT, despite its many flaws, and I figured that if Super could at least reach that level or do better, I would enjoy it. Like, point is, he never had the Z high expectations. So if it can at least have the amount of fun and excitement that, with GT and all its flaws, if it can just reach that, he will enjoy it. As long as I wasn't expecting something on the level of the original series, okay? Battle of Gods absolutely nailed it. It brought back almost every character and gave each of them at least a small moment to shine. It was fun, well animated, and genuinely enjoyable. After such a long hiatus, I don't know how to say it, I was just happy to have a new Dragon Ball content. Then they announced the second movie and a new anime series. When all you've been getting is a 30-minute OVA, a random announcement, or a 15-page manga chapter every 5 years, you'll appreciate anything. But once you're getting a full series again, expectations naturally become higher. That's where Resurrection F dropped the ball. The movie relies almost entirely on nostalgia for Frieza and not much else. The story is pretty mediocre. The new transformation feels incredibly rushed, considering we had just gotten one in the previous movie. And the excuse for bringing Frieza back and starting another war is pretty weak. The disappointing part is that the anime started almost immediately afterward, leaving no time to realize that this probably wasn't the direction the series should have taken. The first two anime arcs added almost nothing. The pacing is poor, they're just retelling stories we've already seen, and on top of that, the animation was a mess. To be fair, I never expected the animation to look as good as the original, so it doesn't bother me as much as it does some people, but I'd still rather have good animation than what we got. Then we move into Universe 6 versus Universe 7, which is fine. It's a decent arc, but fine wasn't enough after the rough start that the series had. It introduced some great ideas. Universe 6 Saiyans, Hit, and even Champa and Vados. Champa? Yeah. Sometimes I want to call him Champa, like champion, but it's Champa, like champagne. There was definitely good stuff there, but overall it still felt a bit underwhelming. Then comes what, in my opinion, is where everything really falls apart. The Goku Black arc. It feels like the writers tried to fix the series through pure nostalgia. They brought Future Trunks back, found an excuse to bring Vegito back, and hoped that would carry the story. The problem is that they also changed Trunks' character for no real reason. Vegito's only around for half an episode, and I'm not even a huge fan of either character to begin with. What I'm left with is an overly complicated story that's poorly explained. Yes, the Cell arc also had three or four. If you want to be really strict, it's just 3 or 4. If you want to be really strict, different timelines, but nobody cares because the story wasn't actually about the timelines. In Super, the timelines become central to the plot, so the explanation actually matters. Then there is Zamasu himself. What did I call him earlier? Zamabo? Zamboza? I don't remember. I never remember his name for some reason. Then there's Zamasu himself, who at best I find more annoying than compelling. The pacing is terrible, and the arc completely throws power scaling out the window. I know a lot of people don't care about power scaling, and that's perfectly fine, but when Goku performs better against fused Zamasu than he did against regular Zamasu, something doesn't add up, whether you care about the levels or not. Trying to remember that. I can't wait for this part in the manga, honestly. I know a lot of people were won over by the fan service. Personally, I think it's the worst arc in any official Dragon Ball story. Thankfully, the Tournament of Power completely turned things around for me. I think the core idea is fantastic, but it was simply too ambitious. There just aren't enough episodes to introduce over 60 new characters while still giving meaningful screen time to the classic cast. You also can't have Goku barely able to stand after one fight, only for him to recover after resting for 20 seconds, and then go on to survive 3 even harder battles. You know, I'm still frustrated because I feel like that would have been so simply solved by a break. In football now, they don't have halftime only, they have hydration breaks. So, my point is, it's a competition. You want to enjoy it from beginning to end. It's natural to give the competitors a break. I don't know if they need a hydration break, so you don't need to give the breaks, but one break would have helped so much with that feeling for me personally. So, that said, I think they finally understood what makes fan service actually work. Wait, sorry, I missed a sentence or two. Personally, I think it would have worked much better if they had used the old Tenkaichi Budokai bracket system, except with the universes instead of individual fighters. That would have taken too. Oh, universes. Oh, so like a battle royale, but universe versus universe or something. A break. A break simplifies things so much. Because now you have this universe fighting this universe. This universe wins with 3. Now you have that universe versus that universe. That universe wins with 5. Now you have 5 versus 3. It's like it complicates things. Simplify. Break. Everyone use your own version of a freaking cat poop bean, and you're good to go. Like, if you know. But okay. Universe 7 could have fought 3 different universes with breaks between rounds, quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, while the remaining universes eliminated each other. That way, we could have spent at least one episode getting to know each of them before they disappeared. Instead of 48 minutes, have it be like a day so that he at least actually has longer breaks instead of seconds. Yeah. I know by now it's almost, even within the Dragon Ball world, since Zit, 3 minutes is like 5 episodes. It's always been kind of a joke, but man, they really took that joke and ran with it for the seconds each episode can sometimes be about. Okay, not seconds, but it's like 3 minutes here, 3 minutes there, and then it was like entire fights. But yeah, his breaks were seconds, literally. Imagine trying to map that out. I wonder, I never took time in Dragon Ball seriously. It doesn't matter. It's always been a joke. But when the whole universe is on the line and the main character is on death's door and takes seconds to come back and fight 3 more, there's a level of suspension of belief that everyone's comfortable with. And it just became less and less and less meaningful, and I don't know. It doesn't need to be accurate, but it just needs to. Fun fact, there are videos where they edited the tournament into actual 48-minute video. I would watch that. I'd love to watch that. I think that would be cool. But they don't need to do it. But it just needs to be done better, honestly. Like, since Z days, fans are used to time not meaning much, and it's part of a joke, but it wasn't like 1 or 2 things in an entire arc. It was that whole arc, that whole Tower of, not the arc, sorry. How many episodes was The actual Tournament of Power from beginning to end. Just I never actually looked it up. I don't know. There's just a point to where you can expect your fandom to suspend their belief or to, you know, if someone is always 10, 15 minutes late, here's a good example. If someone, I don't know who, is always 10 or 15 minutes late, it's a running joke, I'm always late, blah, blah, blah. If someone's always an hour late, at that point, it's just disrespectful. Like, everyone has, obviously, there are certain countries in the world where you are not 5 minutes late. It's already disrespectful. Everyone has a different line. But for me, if someone is 10, 15 minutes late, I don't care. But starting around 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, that's where I start going, this is just insulting right now. So, in that vein, the Tournament of Power started becoming, it was crossing a line for me. It's not funny anymore. It's not cute. It was 34 episodes for 48 minutes. So that's a much less than I thought, honestly. Well, Booty, that sounds like a you problem. There's a scene in Super that shows a clip of Future Trunks killing Frieza in 3 seconds, even though in reality it took almost half an episode. I get the impression that the fights in Dragon Ball happen quickly, but at least they try to show us the moves. But this is not about the moves. We all want to see the moves. This is about we having to believe, oh, Goku's almost dead. 3 seconds later, he's fighting the next guy and the next guy. So the wins mean a little bit less. His strength seems a little bit, I don't know, you don't have to feel the same way, but I'm trying to explain how a lot of us feel. I don't know why, but during both Universe 6 versus Universe 7 and the Tournament of Power, so many theories kept going around that the tournament would get interrupted and an actual new arc would start. I would like to hear people's reasons why. Like, what were they pointing at to support that? Espada says Goku always saying he doesn't have power, only for 1 minute later he can go blue. Bruh. Oh, my bad. 3 seconds. Yeah, that's the thing. If it was like catching your breath for 3 to 4 minutes, honestly more believable than literal seconds. Cause like, yeah. Even I'm trying to get back into gym, and I can run for about 3 minutes, and then I'm like, okay. But then I walk for about slowly for 30 seconds to a minute, and then I start walking faster for 2-3 minutes, and then I can run for another 3 minutes. It's like everyone can conceptualize that, but imagine I run full blast for 3 minutes, stop running for 5 seconds, and then, oh, now I can run again for 5 minutes. Like, it's just, there's a certain level of what I can believe and what just takes away the meaning of the wins. Like, you wanna believe, like, in any sport. Imagine if something like that were to happen in, I don't know, I don't watch sports. I can't even think of, I want to use something different than football. Imagine if Jake Paul is fighting that other guy. What's with the tiger? Imagine if like Jake Paul, who won that fight, by the way? It was a huge internet thing. I never even knew like who won that. I know it was staged. I'm just asking. But like, imagine if the tiger guy beat Jake Paul, and then he was like lying there like, oh, I can't go on. And then he took like a deep breath, and then he jumped up and he went full force again, and then he won. Like, it's I don't know, it still kind of has to be within the context of the world, it has to be believable. And like I said, we were used to, in the context of the world, to long dragged out fights, but man, like I said, they really took that and ran with it. Just a little bit too. Goku Black arc had the craziest theories, like the future Goten is Goku Black one. Time travel will always cause crazy interesting theories. Yes, Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Who won? Who won? Mike Tyson or Jake Paul? I never watched that, so Jake Paul defeated Mike Tyson by unanimous decision. The 8-round heavyweight bout, which took place on November 15 at AT&T. How much do you think they paid Mike Tyson to take the fall there? I'm kidding. He's really young. And I mean, what's the age difference there? I don't know jack shit about this stuff, so. The fight was rigged. They wouldn't let Mike Tyson use regulated boxing gloves. I think a lot of stuff like that in sports, like I said earlier, you guys, the more money is at stake, the more rigged it's gonna be. The sponsors will not stand for things not turning out in their favor. Like, always follow the money, my friends. Always follow the money. The last two movies proved the same thing. Let me read that over. Some of the Tournament of Power's best moments are pure nostalgia, but nostalgia done right. Master Roshi remembering the lessons he taught Goku and Kuririn, Gohan protecting Piccolo the same way Piccolo once protected him against Nappa, Goku and Frieza fighting side by side, Android 17's return. Those moments work because they're earned. Yeah. I think all of that I also agreed with in my reactions. Like, I was hyped for every single one of those things. The last two movies proved the same thing, but put in a little effort and build on the characters people already love. Bring back Broly, bring back Gogeta, give Piccolo and Gohan meaningful power-ups, develop the rest of the cast a little. The result was two excellent movies. I do think Cell Max is a bit of lazy nostalgia. I understand. There simply wasn't enough time in a 100-minute movie to do Cell justice, so I get why they went that route. But I still would have preferred a completely new villain, just like Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 were entirely new characters. I would have liked, because to me, he was kind of he's a new villain to me, honestly. But I get that, but it's literally just the shell. Nothing inside is Cell to me. But I get how you feel about it. You would have preferred. I don't know. I still need to think about that. I replied to you. I did give you my thoughts on that. Can you ping me in our DMs with that answer? Because I just want to read what I said. The last two movies proved the same thing. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Cell Max. Despite everything I've criticized, I completely disagree with one of the most common complaints about Super, that Goku became an unrecognizable idiot. Goku is still Goku. I agree. I went into Super knowing people think Goku is more stupid than ever, blah, 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 blah. And there was like one or two moments I made a joke about it, but I never felt like he was different, or I don't know. He was, wait. He was underutilized sometimes, but he was still Goku. Yeah, it was never as bad as most people made it out to be. I don't think so either. You know who says that though? I think those kinds of thoughts come from people who hate Goku for because people still blame Goku after everything that was said in the Tournament of Power arc. People still blame Goku for the whole fight. They still think he's the stupid one that made. The thing is that it's still Goku, but the anime exaggerates some parts. They watered him down in parts, but those are very small parts in my opinion. I don't remember it ever actually bothering me. Hmm. Yeah, but I can understand his character being watered down here and there. Sure. I think the majority of people who notice this change are those who have been following Dragon Ball for a long time. Booty has been following Dragon Ball for a long time, and you want to compare timelines? You versus Booty, who's been following it for a longer time? I personally think it's, from what I've read, it must come from the people who still, after everything, argue. There was a guy. There was a guy that was in the community for a while who kept sharing his own like little blog posts about Dragon Ball, trying to, I think, make people read the blogs instead of, starting the discussions in the actual community. But he had some interesting discussions here and there. But he called himself this, like, he wrote fan fiction and all kinds of stuff about Dragon Ball. He was like this diehard Dragon Ball fan. But in one of his discussions, he kind of called Goku out for being the cause of the whole Tournament of Power, and like how bad that was, and how, I don't remember exactly, but it's like, how can even the most diehard fans not realize that Goku gave them all a chance to fight for their lives when everyone was gonna be, you know? That's why I said the majority, not everyone. That's a huge claim, though. That's a huge fucking claim. I don't know. How can we check that? No, I don't agree with you. Majority. Okay, so just considering Cell Max, I said about that. He said, Cell is my favorite villain, and this one doesn't even speak a word in the whole movie. It only grunts. His second form is also my least favorite, but it's Toriyama's favorite. I would have forgiven that, but I really dislike him. And I said I understand not liking the mindless part, but in my mind, it kind of had to be Cell because of the whole build up with the Red Ribbon Army, Red Sun, Gero's great grandchild, and even with 100 minutes, that's longer than most Dragon Ball movies, right? I don't think there would have been enough time to do Cell justice. Like, if they added his OG personality, if he was smart, they wouldn't have been able to defeat him. Oh, yeah, I said it. In fact, if it was his smarter OG personality plus this new insane strength, they would not have been able to defeat him on their own, in my mind. He was incomplete, so it all felt natural to me. Yeah, so anyway, I don't know. It feels to me like saying, well, people who've been following Dragon Ball for a long time, at least the majority of us, we understand Goku's character better, and therefore we can see that he's more stupid here. Like, I just don't like. That's why I don't agree with your claim, because it feels like it's coming from a very bad place. It's like, you don't see it because you just haven't been with the story long enough. But then Booty, who's been with the story longer than anyone I know, then you're like, yeah, but that's why I said the majority, but not. So it's like, I don't like that line of reasoning, because you can claim whatever you want and say it's the majority, and then whoever disagree with you, you're just like, well, you're part of the minority. Well, you're part of the minority. And you can just kind of like pretend that you're right no matter what. So it's a bit of a difficult thing to make that claim about. But it's an interesting topic. We can make a whole video just about that, the reading people's opinions. So what are your thoughts about Goku in Super versus Z? Like, is he as stupid as people like to pretend that he is? Because yeah, it was something that I heard about before starting it. I do think that there's moments for sure, but it was just heavily exaggerated in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. I try to use specific examples, but I do fall on just going the majority teehee. We all do. But this is Goku we're talking about. We all rely on fallacies from time to time, but that doesn't make it right. We should be checked. And then we should be like, yeah, you're right. That's a fallacy. That's just what I think. I think we should be called out here and there because I think conversations will become more constructive when we don't become used to some fallacies being normal. And then you just shut someone down because you can see yourself right no matter what because you've established this fallacy. I think it'll become more constructive when you're just like, well, that's how I feel, and some other people feel that way also, but I understand where you're coming from and why you don't feel that way. Like, we should get more comfortable not being right or wrong. Does that make sense? Because I feel like if you're allowing that fallacy, you walk away thinking, I'm right, and I've been watching Dragon Ball for so long, and that's why I understand Goku better. But sometimes it's okay. That's your interpretation, and that's as far as it needs to go. Okay. Where was I? Oh. No. I'm lost. This is a long message. Blah blah blah. Okay. Goku is still Goku. I'm glad you feel that way, Yasin. There are also those who feel differently, but I'm very glad to hear that. Okay, Goku is still Goku. Sure, there are a couple of gags where they exaggerate his stupidity, but they're exactly that, gags. The idea that Goku should suddenly treat Beerus or Zeno differently completely misunderstands his character. He's been interacting with gods since he was 15 years old, and he's always treated them the same way he treats everyone else, naturally, without putting them on a pedestal. The real problem is that Goku's character arc was already completed by the end of Z. He starts as a lonely kid who knows nothing about the world. He meets people. He becomes a student. He becomes a husband and a father. He becomes a leader. He becomes a mentor to Gohan and later to Goten and Trunks through fusion. He becomes part of a larger team and ultimately a family man. By the time Super begins, there's simply nowhere obvious left for his character to grow. All that's left for him is to keep training to become stronger. Without meaningful character development, it's understandable that he can sometimes feel diluted. The one direction I think still has real potential, and Dragon Ball Super Broly touched on it, is Goku finally accepting his Saiyan heritage. Up until then, he's always seen being a Saiyan as something fundamentally negative. He said things like, I know I should be terrified, but instead I'm excited because I'm a Saiyan. Oh. To him, Saiyans are inherently violent people. Like, that's what he thought, because that was what he was taught. His only examples were Raditz and Vegeta and Nappa. Like, can you really understand an entire race based off the three worst dregs that were left for you to learn about? I mean, that's how prejudice in the real life starts. That's how racism happens all the time. You have like no real interaction with another side. You're already heard only like some bad stories. You have some bad experiences and you're done. You're like, no, those people are this kind of way, and that's it. That's all there is to it. But beliefs and one part of history is not the truth, you know. Up until then, he's always seen being a Saiyan as something negative. To him, Saiyans are inherently violent people who can only change through extraordinary circumstances, like he did. Or eventually, Vegeta did. Broly changes that belief. He wasn't born evil, he was manipulated into becoming violent, and despite everything, he never truly lost his kind nature. That's why, at the end of the movie, Goku introduces himself as Kakarot for the first time. I think that's the first moment where he genuinely accepts that being a Saiyan isn't something to be ashamed of. I would really like to see the series explore that idea further. I wonder if they can do that. Like, that's a big thing. And it feels like something that I can imagine Toriyama doing well. Already in the movie, like you said, it's like so small moments, but it's so meaningful. I wonder if they can do that now, you know? So, the last paragraph. I also disagree with the claim that Super is only about Goku and Vegeta. Dragon Ball has always revolved around Goku, even when it arguably shouldn't have. Like during the Buu saga, Vegeta has simply taken over the role that characters like Kuririn, Piccolo, or Gohan used to have as main supporting characters. Considering Vegeta is probably the second most beloved character, almost on Goku's level, that makes perfect sense. But I just want to point out, I just want to point out Goku won in like 99 out of 100 popularity polls. And yes, Vegeta was second, but I'm just gonna have to point that out. And this was in lots of categories like 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, that country, that country, that country, that country. But Vegeta was first in like 1 or 2, but I don't remember. It was do we still have screenshots of that? More importantly, Vegeta has been given the kind of character development Goku can no longer really have. I wanted to say, from where Goku started to where Goku is, he had like a very natural growth for me. Like most people don't start off as super villains, genociders. Like there's a lot more room to grow. But yeah, sorry. I'm having more flashbacks from some Z discussions. Vegeta has been given the kind of Vegeta has been given the kind of character development Goku can no longer really have. We've seen him become Cabba's mentor and openly embrace being a father to Buddha, showing genuine affection for Bulma and continuing to grow as a person. At the same time, I don't think the rest of the cast has been forgotten. The way that they largely were in GT. They're still around and they still contribute ideas, even if sometimes it's only for comedic relief. And the series has even made an effort to bring back characters who had become almost irrelevant during Z, like Roshi and the androids. Android 17. And I just like to point out that in Super, Gohan had a trash green top and bottom, and the Android 18 had a trash pink top and bottom. And I said, that looks disgusting. And then other people were like, no, it doesn't. And then in the movies, they changed it. I'm joking. It's not that serious, but I'm so happy they changed it. Wearing the top and the bottom, like, are you a 60-year-old millionaire? What? Are you that guy from what's that movie called? Despicable Me? Because only weird ass millionaires that wear the top and the bottom in the same color sweatsuit. It's like, I'm kidding. It's not just millionaires, but it's usually like old people or really rich 20-year-olds, but then they're dating old people. I'll stop. Funny enough, that was Toriyama's actual fit. At home, like anyone can wear whatever they want at home. I'm talking about people who goes out in those clothes. And you can go out with whatever clothes you want too. I'm just exaggerating for jokes. But it's just that, especially 18, she's a gorgeous queen. She used to have all the style. She went around shopping. You really want to tell me that girl had a kid and then for a world-saving competition went pink on pink? That's it. That's gonna make me feel powerful. Motherhood takes your style. That's bullshit. My mother still dresses more fabulous than me. You and your words, faster than mine. Color coordination matters, people. That's why Goku wears blue beneath the orange normally, but SSJ is first shown with most of the blue shirt. It contrasts better with the bright hair. Like, I'm making jokes, but it matters. It really does. It really does. Okay. Sorry, random rant aside. Why did I start talking about that? We were talking about Vegeta. Okay. At the same time, I don't think the rest of the cast has been forgotten. Oh, blah, 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 Roshi 17. Yes, yes, yes. On top of that, Superhero strongly suggests that Gohan and Piccolo are finally going to matter again. And there was someone that I talked to about, or maybe I talked in the chat. Booty, I'm going to ask you another favor. Point me to the conversation we had about, not we, I mean in the chat somewhere we had a conversation about Gohan suddenly being strong, like without training. That was an interesting conversation also. All in all, I enjoyed Dragon Ball Super. I think it's better than GT. I don't think you needed to point that out, but that was clear. Not every part of it, obviously, but I enjoyed it overall, and I'm genuinely glad it exists. As a manga reader, I'm really excited to see how they adapt the remaining arcs. I had a great time reading them, and I really hope the anime does them justice. P.S. I actually find Zeno to be one of the most fascinating characters in Super. Same. He's nowhere near my favorite, but he might be the most intriguing. Same. Because I still think I'm suspicious about the whole space and time and the angels and the Zeno being such a kid, and there's definitely some theories you can make there, some conspiracies we could come up with. I think there have been small hints that he's far more than just a 5-year-old child with unlimited power. He better be. Or those angels. I want the space-time war arc, honestly. But that's a discussion for another day. Audiobook done. Doji responded with, I'm not reading all that shit. But no one asked him to. I asked to read it. And I did. Happily. Okay. I almost want to be like people who responded with, "This is too long, I'm not going to read it." I almost want to like skip their messages and be like, how dare you make fun of someone for doing exactly what I wanted them to do? But it's okay. I'll read, please, 2 paragraphs. I honestly think Dragon Ball Z movies and the Dragon Ball Super series are a mistake. At worst, they are watchable. The sad thing is, as much as I love Broly and superhero movies, they don't justify Super's existence. Dragon Ball Super is devoid of any meaning. So let me get this straight. He doesn't care to delve into the discussions. He's decided it's bad and won't hear about it further, but needs to talk about it further. Okay, he doesn't like it. He doesn't think it should exist. There you go. Nothing interesting. Okay, Val, birthday girl. Skipping all my history with the series that I will maybe share in DMs one day. When I learned about a new DBZ movie, I was definitely confused. I was also low-key interested to see what DB would look like in 2013, and it didn't disappoint. I loved Battle of Gods. It was sweet, funny, it looked nice. It had good fighting and some genuine moments, plus a bit of nostalgia with the new vibes mixed into it. It was everything I would have liked in a movie. It became my favorite Z movie easily. Then If came out, and it turned out both movies were canon and the precursor to a whole new series. I was even more confused. I didn't like If as much. It was just okay, but at least it looked good. I think cuz Resurrection F has a really low score on my Annie list compared to other movies because I never had expectations of movies. It was just a fun movie and they were usually pretty short, you know? It was. But then the Beerus movie, Battle of God, set expectations. And then I was kind of disappointed. So I think the score is lower than it should be. It's a 6.8 or something. I think it should be a 7.5, but thank you, Booty. Uh what was I saying? Oh, yes. Frieza. It looks like a lot of people felt the same way about the Frieza movie, but I wonder if it has something to do with, the kind of standard that the first movie set. My issues only started when it turned out they wanted to make a whole series out of these movies and they rewrote them. I thought that was weird, and have I said this word before? Confusing. But this time, I think it was objectively so. Like, you feel more than ever this was actually for real confusing. Like, Battle of Gods and If are canon, but now there's a whole other version of the canon. I have relatively low standards, so I was going to take that laying down when it turned out that the series versions of these movies suck. And the people working on it were being pretty much tortured into churning it out at the mercy of a horrible schedule. Ooh, that is something I have said multiple times. If I ever complain about visuals, it's never because I think the animators are bad. Never. It's probably because they were given a shitty schedule, like time wise and the finance wise. What funding? It's always that. And that's why I get so mad. Like earlier at the very beginning, with I think it was around Shoru's message, I was saying like about respect and stuff. It's not just to the fans, it's also because Toei is making a shit ton of money with games and this and that. And it's not just that they're giving the bare minimum to the fans sometimes, I feel. It's that these animators, I mean, I guess it's a conversation we've had more and more, and it's definitely improving. But corporations keep getting richer, but the ones actually creating with a limited time, a limited budget, they get the scraps. And that makes it all of it worse. When they're out to get more money, and they don't give the people who actually care about what they're making to make it, I just feel it's disrespectful. But as I said around Choru's message, I think there is more to discuss there. It's something that I should take the time to properly write about, not just ramble about. But like I said, we all want, not we all, but a huge amount of people, we love this world, we love these characters. I want to play the games and love them because I see how other people love them. I don't care if they're making a lot of money. I want to buy the things. I want to see more episodes. I want to have the t-shirts and the figures. But I want to know that the money is going back into, at least to some extent, the money is going back into the product and the people, and the people who are really working hard to make it come true. I want to know that they're well better paid, you know? Okay, so Val says the series version of the movies sucks, and the people working on it were being pretty much tortured into churning it out at the mercy of a horrible schedule. I won't get into all the shitty details, but man, every new episode made me a little more mad for many different reasons. The story beats. The story beats were massacred into awkwardness and made the characters look weird and silly. The animation was so rushed, even the keyframes look half baked. There was hardly any thought put into the direction. And outside it, but that's because of the ones at the top who are just doing this for the money and are pushing it, and then you get half-assed work, rushed, and but why did they even need to remake the movies? Were there? They were already good. Just continue. Anyway, outside of the movies, the modern aesthetic was just not working for me. The entire show was basically being carried by the music, the only thing that was consistently great. And the characters. We knew and we loved the characters. I think I would sit through a lot of crap because I love the characters. Very soon, I was literally just waiting for the show to move on to new arcs. And moving on to new arcs, it did. And damn, the start of the Goku Black arc was so good that I was even more mad when the arc itself turned out to be boring and weird. At least I could still look at the movie version of the first two arcs and appreciate them. So meaning the anime didn't, they muffled it, they muddled it, but then you could always revisit the movie and be remembered, or remember, oh, this is what it was great. But now you didn't have a movie to go to. At least I could still look at the movie version of the first two arcs to appreciate them, but the Goku Black arc had almost nothing. It would be the one I'm looking forward to the most in the remaster, if they intend to get that far. Please! Please! Resurrecting the gorgeous corpse of the future Trunks timeline and threatening me with a good time only to make this low-key blasphemy. And I didn't mention the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 arc because it was nice, but even back then I considered that one an appetizer to the rest, if that makes sense. I didn't have any strong criticism of it other than how they handled Piccolo. It was good enough and I liked most of how it turned out. The Tournament of Power is when I finally sat back and actually enjoyed myself. Not the whole time, mind you. It was a little slow and a little strange. It was clear to me that each episode's writer wasn't effing communicating with the other or reading each other's stuff. Oh, really? Maybe they skimmed it at least. Not like they had any effing time to do something basic like that. But overall, the overall final product turned out pretty good in spite of the bullshit, which is something I actually appreciate. It was very imperfect, and yet I was kind of proud that they managed to create something you can appreciate despite all the difficulties involved. And I won't lie, as much as Super doesn't come out of my overview looking all that good, I actually laughed my ass off with it, sometimes for non intentional reasons on its part. I want to believe they finally learned from all this mess and they'll handle DBS with more care going forward. Do you remember anything specific that made you laugh, but it was unintentional? Yasin says many of the writers didn't communicate, and the episodes that actually connected well were usually the same writer, from what I remember. Oh, okay. I feel like I would notice that slightly less if I was watching one episode per week. But I do know that I was complaining about direction, like the flow and stuff, here and there. And it would have probably been more noticeable if you're watching in batches, you know? Oh, what's this? Nothing about the movies? That is because they were great. End of story. Okay, so maybe I don't like the 3D parts in Broly at all, and while Superheroes 3D looked very good, I still think 2D is way cooler as a main animation method, but okay. Saying anything else against them would be like looking at the gift horse in the mouth. They are how all of Super should have been, which is to say, an improvement to Battle of Gods. Instead of a huge crowd of underpaid workers being forced to kick a corpse on the ground at gunpoint for more than half of the time it was going on. Needless to say, I had a much better overall experience with the manga. It's just that it's just that easy when it's only one guy who's writing, doing his own thing, actually taking his time and being followed more closely by the original author. Because we've talked about this in the manga read alongs. Toriyama is a mangaka. He would have worked more closely with another mangaka. In Japan, respect is everything. I can't really see even a legend like Toriyama trying to tell directors and animators what to do, you know? He gives his notes, maybe he answers a question or two, he helps with designs or whatever, but I don't know all the details or any proof or whatever, but it just makes sense to me that he would have spent more time working with the new mangaka than, a team of people working on the anime. Multiple writers. Like how do you, I didn't even know it had so many writers per episode. Toyotaro, thank you. Okay. And actually being followed more closely by the original author, it worked much better that way. Who would have guessed? Actually, I really want to emphasize, this is still Val, that I don't blame the creatives involved for the way things turn out. Oh yeah. It was clear, you don't have to emphasize, but me too, I always feel like I extra have to say that. It's always the corporations, the people who have no idea what it really means to make these things come alive. They just want, like, more. And when they say more, they want more money. And they don't care what you have to do, how late you have to sit up. They understand nothing. Sorry, what? So Val also wants to emphasize, I don't blame the creatives involved. I know I've been clear enough about that in my wording, and I can't know for sure what happened. I wasn't a fly on the wall of the Toei headquarters and or whatever studio around the world they involved in every step of the process, but I've been the victim of big bosses having no idea what a valid product looks like, how people make it valid, or caring about it at all, or caring at all about either of those things. I deeply empathize with that. Same, yeah. I wanted to be a hairdresser because I felt like if you could help someone with their confidence here, you could help someone with their confidence here. But and with hair, to keep the integrity of the hair, you have to slowly lighten it. So you have different volumes of bleach. You have volume 10, volume 20, volume 30, volume 40, blah, blah, blah. But the faster you lighten it, the more you sacrifice the integrity of the hair follicles. But even though most of the owners of these stores are actually hairdressers themselves, or were at one point, they don't really care. They're like, faster, faster, more, more, more. They want turnover, they want money. And then they share the scraps with you. Anyway, so I get you. I wanted to add two things that came to mind. And once again, even in the large industry machine that is Toei, I'm sure, I'd like to believe that it's not necessarily that they have these bad intentions. It's just that they don't really understand what it takes. They might not have the same passion. They might have bills to pay, families to feed, whatever themselves. It's a big ass machine that they need to keep running. But they need to take a step back. And I think that they are doing it more because they're so used to how they're used to how things worked. And it might have made sense back then. But the like, let's say you start a business, and it's like their business model never updated. You start a little animation studio, a little this, and your viewers, your consumers are mainly, Japanese people. And then through a very series of fortunate events, now your audience is the whole world. You're making more money than ever. But the business model hasn't been updated. Like, it's kind of like the school system where at one point people needed to go to school, people needed to learn certain skills, and so there was a lot of factories, and the factories needed workers, and they made all the kids sit in little queues and put their hand up to go to the bathroom and this and that, and it trained society what society needed back then, maybe. But society is different now. But the school system, I mean, some private schools are much better, but public schools are generally the same. There's this video about how it shows cars look different, phones look different, this looks different, everything looks different, but the public schools look more or less the same. Like, it feels like the business model that they had back then just kind of carried on, and they're not really adapting the time that's now needed, or I don't know, workers' rights, man. And the money that they're making. If you're paying this is completely made up numbers. If, let's say, you're paying wait, there's something I read recently. It was something about like how the mangaka gets paid a set amount, and even if the thing is very, very successful, they never see a penny of the larger success or whatever like that. My point is, it needs to take into consideration a lot more than they currently are. And even though I love to believe that they're not being intentionally bad, historically, large corporations, I don't know. I just don't want to believe. I think I have a very ideal idea of Japanese people in general, but even the nicest Japanese person in a large corporation where you don't really understand what's going on at the ground floor and how hard they're working and what they're doing. I don't know. How can it change? But a lot of changes have been made recently. Let's give props for that. So Val says, I have been a victim of big bosses having no idea what a valid product looks like, how to make it, or care about either of those things, like the processes. I deeply empathize with the creatives involved. and I wanted to add two things that came to mind when I was reading the answers above mine. Number one, before the movies came out, I used to believe the big problem with DBS is that it didn't have enough stakes. No threat felt threatening enough for me to feel involved, and no situation felt dire enough. When the movies came out, I realized the problem were not the stakes, it was the handling of the writing, and to some extent, the anti blood policy. Number two, I'm one of those that criticize the writing on Goku, that I think he was written to be too silly and he was dumbed down. I still kind of believe that to some extent, but I feel less harsh on it nowadays. At the end of the day, it's just about the dissonance between Goku's arc having been closed with the end of Z, where the writing on him balanced out usefulness and maturity much better. He had to stay true to himself while still giving off the aura of a solid guy who actually knows what he's doing. And in Super, it's like they went a step back, making him 80% silly of instead of, I don't know, 50%, because otherwise they didn't know how to handle a shonen protagonist like that in modern times. And Toriyama had already given them the answer. They just chose not to go with that route. What do you mean? Toriyama already gave them the answer? The answer was letting the rest of the cast carry the show with their qualities and faults while Goku spends a majority. Oh, I see, that's the answer. Yeah, he's had his growth arc. So don't try and have him at the forefront if you don't know what to do with his character. While Goku spends a majority of the time learning new things about himself at a slower pace, while still staying the most relevant player. It kind of makes me think, like, I used to post a lot. This is just a personal. Oh no, it's red. Okay, I had to pause the video for a minute because there were some issues, stream issues. I do not remember where I ended precisely, but just to conclude a long ass ramble that I feel like Valinon's thoughts were very clear, and then I just ended up rambling. And honestly, we spoke a little bit about like huge organizations and just kind of things getting fuzzy. I feel like you start with this. Imagine how Dragon Ball started. This creator with an idea in their head and their heart, and they had an editor above them that kind of works with them. And if you read Barakamon, Bakuman, if you read Bakuman, one of an editor's job is like if the series is successful, drag it out as long as you can. Like that's their job. So you already have a diluted experience, not a diluted, but a changed experience with one author and then one editor. But in some cases, it can be even better. I mean, well, we'll never know if it was better. But as far as I remember, the androids initially were just supposed to be Gero and the other guy, and then the editor was like, no, 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 no. It's buffering again, but let me just finish this thought, and then hopefully I can restart the stream. But let me just finish this thought. So you have the author working with an editor, and it's a changed experience to some extent, but imagine it like a captain steering a ship, or like it's not even the captain always that steers the ship, but the captain decides on the destination. You have someone, the helmsman, steering, and you have someone like Nami that's a cartographer that reads the maps, that watches the weather, and that makes. So my point is, a team effort for any creation is normal, but it's also normal. The bigger and the bigger and the bigger a corporation gets, the more captains are basically being installed on the ship. It struggles to get anywhere when there's 5 different captains all trying to go in a different direction for a different reason, and all kinds of stuff. But we should be thankful for the corporations because they have their own strengths. I was joking about the whole them trying to, big toy trying to censor me. No, I'm joking. Big FIFA. We were talking about FIFA also. But to a large extent, these big corporations also have their benefits because they bring a lot of things into, like, they create a platform, that of which, if managed properly, can launch stories that might have never existed without their backing, so there's always positives and negatives. But yeah, I just, as with anything else, there's always like two extremes, and if you can just balance the creator's vision and how they do things with whatever the big corporation brings to the table, and worldwide marketing and this and that, like, there's a lot that goes into all of this that we will never understand fully. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be allowed to question and criticize, and that doesn't mean that they can't do things better, because clearly they can. There are things that can be improved. Okay, it's green again, so yeah, I started saying positive things and they decided, okay, she can talk again. She can talk again. Okay, so thank you so much, Val, for bringing that perspective. Also, as an artist who works on deadlines. You don't have a straw. I made you a normal coffee. Give me that. No, just bring me a straw. There's a sip here. I will have it. So next up is Vermilio. I already read your thoughts about the Broly movie, so I will read everything else that you put in chronological order. Starting with, your message says, the Battle of Gods movie. I still remember when it hit theaters in 2013. Many of my friends were blown away and going crazy over Dragon Ball's return after such a long time. Even though I was 14 back then and had watched DBZ on TV and DVD, I'd never seen the original series. Oh, so I didn't quite grasp just how magical Dragon Ball was. That's when I decided to watch the movie, totally naive, thinking, who's the next chump Goku's going to beat? But Goku and I both got a rude awakening from the magnificent character Beerus. Man, when I saw him simply defeat Goku with a single flick of his finger, I was like, holy shit, what is this? That was the moment my interest in Dragon Ball skyrocketed, especially because of the fight, which was spectacular, featuring that scene where Goku screams, "No more destruction," while the song Hero by Flo kicks in. Oh. I am wildly excited to rewatch moments like that one day when, I don't know, it's dying again. Should I restart? I'm gonna restart. No, it's green again. Never mind. It's green. It's green. Anyway, that's just the story of the first time I watched those two movies. Now, having practically rewatched OGDB and Z, I still hold the same opinion and feeling whenever I watch Battle of Gods. However, on rewatching Resurrection F, I found that movie to be really bad. How can you feature the franchise's greatest villain without conveying any sense of fear? The golden transformation might be cool, but the way he manages to literally match the power of a god after training for such a short time is ridiculous. Speaking of god level power, The Super Saiyan Blue transformation looks great, but I don't think another hair color was necessary. Why not just keep the red, but in Super Saiyan form? That would have made more sense. Moving on to the anime. Man, I was really excited at first and I kept up with the release up through the Frieza arc. I actually really liked the Beerus arc. It has some nice family moments, and I thought the Goku versus Beerus fight was even better than the one in the movie because it's longer and the dialogue between the two is excellent. But then came the Frieza arc, and that's where I dropped the series. For me, it's the worst saga in the entire franchise. The story feels rushed and nonsensical, and the Frieza turned into a generic villain. And we got absolute worst version of Gohan ever. That's still difficult to come to terms with. But I mean, at this point, I'm seeing it like we all have a rock bottom in our lives, and he went through a rough patch. Plus, Goku nearly died from a simple laser blast fired by one of Frieza's henchmen. Sure, people say he let his guard down, but in Z, the only time Goku let his guard down, or so I can recall, was against Majin Vegeta, and at least that was Vegeta, not just some random nobody from Frieza's army. For a warrior like Goku, someone who has trained under multiple masters and faced incredibly powerful opponents, going out like that is a joke. As the saga went on, it ended with Wiz having to turn back time to save everyone, resulting in a totally boring and lackluster conclusion. We have the Champa arc, which is when I started watching DBS again in 2016. I was finally watching new content, and I admit I really enjoyed it the first time around, especially the fight between Goku and Hit. Hit was a fascinating character with his time skip ability. He presented a first challenge to the cast, which felt innovative. I do think it was a bit of a stretch for Hit to withstand Goku's Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 10. He should have been obliterated from existence by that. Kamehameha. Not that Goku would have actually done that, of course. I just mean the blast was incredibly powerful. Still, I ended up accepting it because the fight itself was so good. The saga also has a really fun and funny ending with the all powerful Monaka emerging as the tournament's winner. One of Super's strong points was the inclusion of more humorous moments, contrasting with the more serious tone of Z. Kuririn almost cracking SSJ Goku's head with a rock. It's been forbidden. What? It's been forbidden? I remember they were like sitting and chilling in their forms the whole time, and then you threw him or something? I got to head to bed. Thanks for the fun stream. I hope you don't get any more red. Bye, Moldra. I'm sorry it ended on a rough note. Thank you for the butts earlier, and see you on the weekend. I remember when that happened now, but what does it mean it's been forbidden? Do you mean it's been forgotten? Because he was talking about the laser shooting thing? Ah, okay. Was that canon? I remember it, and I don't remember having an issue with that personally. Specifically because I think Beerus or Wiz pointed out that Goku keeps letting his guard down. So I didn't have a problem with that, but at least he says here the in his memory, the only time was against Majin Vegeta. But yeah, I don't remember having a problem with that. But maybe I don't know. Can you remember my reaction? But yeah, remember I'm reading comments, not saying all of the stuff. It was interesting that the anime changed him getting shot in blue to him getting shot in base. Oh, from the movie versus the maybe that's why. In my opinion, the Goku Black arc represents the biggest wasted opportunity in the series. Black had everything going for him to be the greatest villain of all time, especially since fans had already created what if Goku turned evil stories long before. I admit I was let down when I found out he was actually a Kaioshin who had taken over Goku's body. I really liked the Goten theory. Anyway, I find this saga quite weak. It's a shame because it features the return of future Trunks and Vegito, but bringing those characters back doesn't help when the story is so confusing. I I still remember when I posted these reactions to YouTube, I got 10 people explaining to me the timelines and stuff and being like, it's so simple, this, blah, 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 blah. But none of them actually said the same thing. Ha, 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 ha. Like, I'll believe it's simple when you can actually explain to me the same thing. I actually hold an unpopular. Wait. Future Trunks confusing. Once again, it fails to generate any real tension. I know that when we first watched it, we were eager for the next episode, but rewatching it now, it doesn't feel the same. I actually hold an unpopular opinion about this saga. I like the ending. I mean, what else could Goku, Vegeta, and the others have done to defeat Zamasu? The guy was immortal and he had wiped everyone out. Zeno was truly the only option left. I like the ending because it's completely different from other sagas. He was the only Dragon Ball villain who actually won. He got exactly what he wanted. Okay, he died too, but managed to get Zeno to erase Trunks' entire world, meaning it was practically a victory for a villain. I remember people complaining about the ending, but I also remember people on my comments saying, never forget Zamazu, the one that won. But can I be 100% honest with you guys? I forgot. I remember Zeno coming to destroy Zamazu, but did he destroy Trunks' whole world timeline? To be fair, at that point I kind of checked out because I was arguing with people about it's confusing and then other people saying no, it's not. And I was around that time I was also on my period, by the way. And I remember the one day having a fight with Waleed, and I like said, I'm gonna go to the bathroom now. Is that okay? And then I left. And then we never included that video because it was a separate video where I read like I was gonna read a chapter of the manga, but I read like one page and I was like, oh, that makes more sense. I don't need to read more. I just need to understand that and then I can finish. And then Walid was like, it's not confusing. And I was like, oh, thank you for telling me how I feel about it. And I kind of went off, but at that point I was just tired of people telling me it's not confusing when it is. Oh, right. That's why there's two Zeno in our, cause basically the Zeno from that. Okay, wait. There's different universes, and each timeline has its own universes. So each timeline has its own Zeno. And that's why I was curious about the time and space situation, because Wiz and the angels can manipulate time. Zeno seems to be able to manipulate space. That's an interesting. There's something interesting there to explore in the future, I hope. But so where is future Trunks now? Yeah, see, and that's the thing. You have watched it a lot of times, and then you've come to your own conclusion. But if you explain your conclusion to me and 9 other people explain their conclusions to me, it never lines up. And that's why it's confusing. Even if it's not confusing to you, it's so confusing because even the people that like it and don't think it's confusing can't explain it the same way. You have to fill in the gaps your own way. Your own brain does it in your interpretation, and that's fine. But it's confusing to people. Yeah. Future Trunks and Mai were moved to another timeline where another Future Trunks and Mai existed. Wes moved them and took care of the Zamazu that they're so set. What? Future Trunks and Mai were moved to another timeline where another Future Trunks and Mai existed. So wait, in that world, in that timeline, sorry, there's now 2 Future Trunkses and 2 Mais. That seems like a bad idea. For like, if I've learned anything from time travel movies, it's that you shouldn't do stuff like that. But okay. And finally, we got to the Tournament of Power. So this is the Vermilio's comment. The Tournament of Power, for me, this was the most memorable saga. It happened during Saga of Super. It happened during one of the coolest periods of my life, high school. You liked high school? Whoa. I mean, I liked 2 years of high school, so I guess, but wait, not even, yeah, maybe, yeah, I like 2 years of high school. Anyway, sorry, this is becoming a different conversation. Every week when a new episode came out, it was an event. I would discuss it in Facebook groups, forums, and with my friends at school. The hype was insane. And the highlight, oh, it's basically like imagine 2 twins dating. Have you ever seen those videos? Argentina scored 2 goals in 25 minutes. Yay. Every week when a new episode came out, it was an event. That sounds like the best experience. Like, some days I wish I was watching anime in high school, but at the same time, I realized I didn't have internet back then like I do now. I wouldn't have been able to talk to anyone about it. And I remember there being Dragon Ball Z fans in, like, a lot of the boys were Dragon Ball Z fans in primary school, but in high school, I never really heard anyone talking about it. I'm sure Joey was watching it, but Joey and I were not friends at the time. So I don't think I would have had the experience that you had, but that sounds so fun. I would have enjoyed school more if I had like a community of people that like the same thing. That's why I think clubs are so important, you know? Mm, I agree. Weekly release is good. Hear that, Netflix? And the highlight was when Ultra Instinct showed up for the first time. That was unique. I've never felt the same thing watching Dragon Ball again. The internet crashed. The streams lagged. Everyone was only talking about that. And for what year was that? I want to, like, where was I in my life when that happened? Because I never fucking knew. I've seen, because of primary school, I knew what Boo looked like. I knew what a Super Saiyan looked like. I knew who Vegeta was. I knew who Bulma was, more or less. I had a crush on Future Trunks. I didn't follow the story, but I watched an episode here and there. I kind of knew who was who. Okay, October 2017. Can I quickly just check my Instagram? I have to be like, where the fuck was I in my life? The funny part is that Instagram is, I don't remember where I was in 2017, but Instagram remembers. So I can scroll. That's what I was gonna talk about earlier. I don't remember why. Shit. But there was a part where I paused because of the, never mind. Okay, so my first post that is saved is from January 2017. So October. I don't have any posts in October specifically, but at the time I had moved back in with my dad after trying to move to Durban, make it on my own, get a job. Then the guy I was working for went bankrupt, stopped paying me. I kept thinking he's gonna pay me, let me just keep doing my work. I couldn't pay my rent, I had to move back in with my dad. And that's at the same time I started working on a business plan for YouTube. So I was heavily not in the anime fandom at the time. I did do some vlogs at the time though. So I was making YouTube videos, but it was vlogs. Then because I ran out of money and I had to move back in with my dad, I couldn't make vlogs anymore. I didn't have money to go anywhere to vlog. So I asked the community at the time, what would you like to see reactions to? And the lady that I was living with before I had to move back in with my dad, I was renting someone's like granny flat behind their house. I don't know what you call it in your country, but we call it like a granny flat. So she told me, you and Hanku should react to RuPaul's Drag Race. And other people in the community that were watching the vlogs asked us to react to Game of Thrones, Eurovision, and the K-pop. So, no, my first anime reaction was the end of Darling in the Franxx, I think. And then maybe Death Note. I don't remember. So I was living with my dad. I was reacting to a bunch of random things that people requested. And I only got into anime maybe a year or so later when Joey told me about Kiss Anime. Because I didn't have money to subscribe anywhere. And then I started watching Fairy Tail and maybe another show or two like Elfen Lied, Ouran High School Host Club. And I even remember at the time I started getting back into anime and I was like, oh my god, I love this. And funny enough, on my main channel, I even made a video around that time. I wanted to start doing anime reactions, or just an anime segment on the channel. And I remember making a top 10 favorite anime list, and Dragon Ball Z was on that list because I didn't see more than 6 anime. So I was like, okay, I watched some Pokemon as a kid. I watched some Dragon Ball Z. Like, I just needed a top 10 list. I just scrambled to make it the full list, but it was... I had only seen like 6 anime at that point. So, I watched Eureka 7. I watched... There was a lot of shows that I watched on my own before I made a channel. But then, because I became so obsessed with anime and stuff, I started a separate Twitter account and I started tweeting. And I really enjoyed interacting with the community, the anime community. And I started getting like unengaged with the community of the main channel because of reasons I want to get into right now. Like, I always say this, but no matter what I watch or engage with, like whatever game I'm playing, whatever story I'm reading or watching, I'm going to have good things to say. I'm going to have negative things to say. Like, that's my kind of personality. I try not to be blinded by just what I love. Like, I try and have a balanced approach when I can. But, and there will always be people who get mad about it, but I don't care because I love it more than they hate me for not liking everything. So as long as it stays worth it, I'll keep. But that's the thing. That community didn't allow, like, they didn't allow, just like any other community, there's a huge, loud minority that doesn't allow you to criticize. And if you, and that community is worse because they don't just call you stupid. Parts of that community would call you like transphobic and this and that. Because I was watching RuPaul's Drag Race and oh, and racist because I didn't like one black queen. I liked other black queens, but because I disagreed with the one, I was. So it wasn't, I didn't love the community enough to be worth the hate. So eventually I decided I'm going to focus. I love anime. It's worth any shit that I get. So I'm going to go all in on anime. But to get back to what we were talking about, around the time of, this was August 2017. So around the time that Ultra Instinct came out, my hair looked like this. But I wasn't watching anime. It's very white. I wish I could still get it that way. But yeah, that's why I never heard anything about Ultra Instinct despite the internet going crazy, was because I was, at that time in 2017, I had just started reacting to things, but it wasn't anime. It was going from vlogs to Game of Thrones, RuPaul's Drag Race, Eurovision, and K-pop. That was my first introduction to the reaction community. Once in a while, I'd like to see a reactor just not liking stuff as vocally as they like other things. If anything, just because it would be different. Just train with Quiz and you will. Vermilio says, that looks like me now. I finished 3 or 4 anime series and the 5th one is ReZero. Come into the community more. There's so many good things to watch. There's so many good things. I'm just thinking, compared to the Western fandoms right now, we are thriving. We are disgustingly spoiled. Like, we get so much, honestly, to a fault. We get way too many anime per season. But in terms of manga, and even with manga, like, I have to say, by the sounds of things, Shonen Jump cuts good things too often, but it's because they have so much to choose from. So if it doesn't instantly garner a certain amount of attention, they drop it. And I don't like that. But it's because it's not just Japan, because it's also with manhwa and stuff, but the East, can I say the East compared to the West, is just making so much more good things. Is it just me that feels that way? The West is having a difficult time right now. The West is fighting an in-world battle. Half of them hate themselves and the other half hates the ones that hate themselves. And it's like, it's kind of like it feels like a very internal struggle right now. So they kind of need to find their feet again and make things that people actually are asking for, because I think that's a big problem. They keep making things that no one asked for. Like, I loved Moana, the animation, and then like 2 or 3, okay, just a short while later, boom, Moana live action. But it's not really live action because everything is anyway computer generated. But, and then the only reason I bring it up is because I read over the weekend that it cost like $250 million to make, and it had one of the worst opening weekends. It still garnered like 95 million or something, but compared to 250 million to make, like their live actions are not landing most of the time unless they take from Japan and they make One Piece live action and then shit lands. But I just think that the West needs to learn how to make things that people actually want again. I don't know. But to be fair, I do think that the West, there are certain people who, and this is conspiracy theory territory 100%, but I do think there are certain people who wants the West to, like, you're drowned with horrible news all the time. Then your escape is movies, games, but you can't escape the news. You can't escape. They bring everything and they keep making everyone fight each other. And I think that is orchestrated. But that comes from my internal distrust of large governing bodies. But yeah, they should. So my point is, even if I say they should start making things that people want, it's not like they don't know that. These people are high paid industry professionals. They work with millions of dollars. If some random chick in South Africa can see what their problem is and why they're not making money, they know what their problem is, but they keep doing it anyway, and they keep doubling down. They keep throwing away millions of dollars and pointing at certain fans and calling them racist, them sexist, them this, them that. That seems to be on purpose, don't you think? That seems to be their intention then, don't you think? It's also because they don't respect animation or the fans. Animation is still seen as childish, and whenever a popular animated thing is getting a movie, they enlist actors rather than voice actors. While Japan treats voice actors as celebrities in and of themselves, and anime is heavily respected, and statues are created of anime characters. I mean, we have had those discussions when it comes to voice actors, definitely. But they have Disney. They've always seen, I mean, Walt Disney had a passion for what he did, and he created some beautiful movies and stuff. And they made entire parks, and it's called the happiest place in the world. And there's Goofy, and they do understand it. We shouldn't make excuses for them. They know what is. They know to some extent in certain industries, and the biggest ones know. Look at the Matrix. They gave Keanu Reeves Ghost in the Shell to watch before that. They gave him some Eastern Kung Fu movies to watch to prepare him and make him understand what they were going for and this and that. There are people who know, but there are other people and other projects that are being funded with ungodly amounts of money. And I think it's on purpose. Moving on. Okay, for Vermilio, the highlight was Ultra Instinct. When it showed up for the first time, it was unique. I've never felt the same thing watching Dragon Ball again. The internet crashed, the streams lagged, everyone was talking about it. And for me, the ending of the tournament is the best of all. No one expected Android 17 to be the winner. All the theories were about Goku, Vegeta, and even Jiren. Seeing 17 go that far was brilliant, and it was really good to see them bring back the characters from Z, keep his cold and calculating personality, but evolve him. He became a genuinely good person to the point of using the wish to bring all the universes back. In other words, the famous Goku effect again. Turning villains into good guys. But remember, where did the Goku effect start? It's a ripple effect. It started with his interactions with his grandpa, then Bulma, then, like, Goku himself was changed by the people around him, and then it's like that goes to show that beautiful ripple effect. Bring it back to Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. Sorry, it's not really relevant, but I just wanted to talk about Michael Jackson again. But yeah, I don't know. It's people like his grandfather first and foremost, but even interactions with people who were never perfect, people like Bulma, people like, and she was a selfish kid. Like he learned from everyone because of the seeds that his grandpa planted, and then yeah, that kind of went outwards. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Since it's a battle royale with more than 60 fighters at the same time, I expected more creativity. Most of the characters were generic and poorly introduced. Agreed. Duh. It could have been a much, like, honestly, a longer arc. You don't have to say 48 minutes. You could have said any amount of time that you liked. You could have put in any amount of breaks that you wanted, hydration breaks. And then you could have fleshed out and given properly, but once again, the creative team had no time, no budget. In the end, the tournament just came down to Universe 7 versus 6 versus 11. The fights could have been more elaborate with more different matchups. Another thing that annoyed me was the excess dialogue during the fights. The characters themselves were narrating move by move. Oh, yeah, the ones in the peanut gallery on the side. It killed the pacing so much. I get the anime was weekly and they were in a rush, but I would have much preferred if they extended this arc with more episodes. I miss seeing more of Tien, Piccolo, and especially Gohan. They deserved more spotlight. A lot of people say that Super Goku is dumb, but for me, this is where he shows the peak of his intelligence. The guy managed to achieve and master a technique that even the gods have a hard time using. Master? Only a genius could do that. I know he got it really fast, but it makes sense. The whole series shows that Goku learns absurdly fast. Yeah, his very first Kamehameha, he watched one time and is like, oh. It's the same logic with Gohan. He doesn't need to train much to unlock a new power when he gets angry. That's exactly why I think the arc should have been longer. That way Goku and the other characters would have more time to develop these transformations and techniques instead of everything feeling rushed. And if the animation and direction had been better, that scene of the gods standing up in respect when Goku achieves complete Ultra Instinct would easily be one of the best scenes in Dragon Ball history. About Goku's personality, I agree that the exaggerations did happen, but only specifically in the Black Saga. That's where they pushed his goofy side too far. I was so frustrated with other parts of that saga, I barely remember what Goku was like. There were several scenes where that broke the mood and ruined the mystery around Goku Black. The best example is when he goes to meet Zamasu for the first time. Goku acts like he's excited to make a new friend. All silly, like a kid in a toy store. And it's Beerus who has to hold him back, like a dad trying to control his kid. That makes zero sense. With Beerus, who was a god, way stronger than him and a real threat, Goku was respectful and serious. But with Zamasu, who at the time was way weaker than Goku, he's acting all light-hearted. It doesn't add up. Aside from those moments in the Black Saga, I still think it's the Goku we know. The problem is that he had to keep being the protagonist, and Toei probably thought if you make him serious and the family man he was in Z, it'll be boring for the current generation. To match Super's lighter and more colorful vibe, they decided to make him dumber, a bit dumber, more laid back. It worked to give the adventure tone, but sometimes they went overboard. The problem is exactly this. Super let go of Z's essence. In Z, sorry, sometimes I say Z because Dragon Ball Z, and sometimes I say Z. In Z, we had the perfect balance between light moments and serious moments. There were jokes, but when a fight started, you could feel the tension. In Super, that got lost. In no saga do you really feel something is at stake. There's no gravity, no weight. In the end, it feels like all the threats, all the battles, were just Goku hanging out with his friends. Just a fun little break before what actually matters, the end of Z. And for a series that was supposed to expand the universe, it leaves you feeling, leaves you with a feeling of none of this mattered. Did England win, by the way? I mean, did Argentina win? Unfortunately, the animation was terrible for 90% of the show, which really detracted from the experience. I sincerely hope the sequel, likely releasing between late 2027 and early 2028, features sequel or re-release quel. Great. Well, you did say he did 2 great assists, so at least it's deserved. I do understand why people, though, felt like they didn't really deserve to make it this far in the first place, but at least here now, no one can say they didn't deserve it for this semi-final. How many wins did Spain have in the past versus Argentina? The re-release is this year, but the actual season 2 is next year or so, but no official release. How do you know it's the actual season 2 is next year? I don't understand why they're gonna redo. Why would they redo Battle of Gods Saga if they have a movie, they have a trashy anime counterpart? Why would they redo it again if they're only gonna redo that part? If any arc deserves to be remade, it's the Black Saga. Why would they? It's very frustrating. They're basically doing what they did with Fishman Island with One Piece. But the One Piece anime took a break for the first time ever. And then they redid an arc. But this has a movie, it has an arc, and there are better, worse arcs that should be redone. But okay. They're doing more than just Beerus. But how can you say then, how can they do all of Beerus in 2027 and then do season 2 in 2028? Like, if there's a sequel coming, okay, I understand that. But I don't understand why they would do just Beerus and the Resurrection F and then go, okay, now season 2. Wow. This year, we did not have any DB anime content, and the DB IP won $500 million less. I don't know. It's really weird for me if they're gonna redo Beerus and not Black Saga, but I'll just figure it out as we go along. There's still a lot more to read, right? How many more people? And I also need to do my Japanese lesson in like 20 minutes. Unfortunately, the animation was terrible for 90% of the show, which really detracted from the experience. I sincerely hope the sequel, likely releasing between late 2027 and 2028, features more better animation and ditches the ridiculous censorship regarding the lack of blood. How can an anime focused on combat, where characters are constantly fighting, not show a single drop of blood? They might as well rename it Dragon Toy Story Bowl. Dragon Toy Story Bowl! About the super movies, I'm going to send you here. Okay, so I already read the DBS Broly part. And then, as for superhero, I really like the film. At first, I didn't quite warm up to Gohan's new transformation. It seemed to come out of nowhere and happen so fast, especially since he had barely started training again. But I eventually came around to it. I mean, that's just Dragon Ball. But I responded to that. I don't personally think it's just Dragon Ball. I think it's pretty well established, that transformation in my mind. Plus, it actually makes sense for Gohan since he's a character who always unleashes massive power when he gets furious. I actually preferred Piccolo's evolution. I've mentioned before that he's my second favorite character, so I was thrilled to see him make a real comeback. I hope all these characters get better utilized this time around. Bringing back so many supporting characters was a huge win for Super. And Espada says, I will keep it short, starting with what I liked. Ultra Instinct Goku and Royal Blue Vegeta. Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Evolved. Kappa. Frieza is okay. I used to dislike him coming back, but not so much anymore. And I like Dragon Ball Super Episode 125. God of Destruction, Toppo. Aside from the animation problems, no need to talk about that. 90% of the time I didn't like Goku, 95% of the time I didn't like Vegeta. And every other character is washed. I hate the changes to some of the characters, like Trunks, Bardock, and Timu Broly. And then here's just his scores. 10, 8.4, 8, 2.5. I don't think I have anything scored that low. Some of the stupid stuff, such as Frieza's training for 4 months, didn't sit well with me. It still doesn't. Android 17 is farming poachers becomes very strong. Meanwhile, in the future, 17 and 18 killed so many people over the years, yet their power did not increase. Super is a show for idiots, plain and simple. Coming from, what's that thing? Takes one to know one. Okay. Mother says, I enjoyed DBS overall. Some arcs did kind of fall flat, like Goku Black, but as for Beerus and Wiz, I enjoyed them a lot, and I felt they brought a lot to the Dragon Ball universe. I also really liked they brought Frieza back and how they introduced Golden Frieza. My favorite arc has to be the God of Destruction Beerus arc, followed by the Tournament of Power. Ow. My least favorite arc has to be the Future Trunks arc. It started strong, but towards the end it fell flat. I enjoyed Broly in DBS a lot more than Zed. To me, Broly from DBZ has to be one of the most overrated characters. He was basically a boring blank slate and didn't bring anything new to the world at all. At least with DBS, he had a personality and was more likable. Hell, even Kel was a better version of Broly than the one from DBZ. Walid says, all that talk, but somehow GT is an 8 and Super is a 2.5. But GT isn't, as far as I know, when we were watching it, it was never sold as canon. And well, Espada says, the problem with Super is that it made me hate the characters, something that GT didn't do. And then let me scroll down. Conversation. I don't think making a series keep going after many years has to imply making more of the same. Both trying to make more of the same and more with a modern twist are valid options. It's all in how they handle it. I think they chose option 2, but it took a long time to understand what the newer direction actually would even look like in this franchise. I think they're pretty square if they keep going in this direction. All I'd need, they're square if they give their animators enough and the writers enough time. But now they have, I don't know. I just think they should follow the manga a bit better. At least you know the main points. All I'd need after this is for the arcs to get the slightest bit bolder, plus some details that I won't share because they're more manga related. And then me and Super are pretty much cool. I'll gladly forgive the BS if the remaster is good enough. I just will hate if they start with the arc that has a great movie and then don't continue. Okay, here's Gabriel. Just so you know how serious the scoring is, he said later that with better animation, DBS would be better than GT. So put movie animation and a 2.5 goes over an 8. Anything below a 5 for me gets far too personal. All scores are subjective, but once things go below a 5, I start seeing it as more and progressively more personal. Like, it's just not something that you can really, from an outside perspective, wrap your head around. So it's just like, oh, okay, and then you move along. I feel like when people are scoring something from a 6 to a 9, that's where good conversation can happen. But when someone has something at a 10, and even more, if something is 5 or below, that's where it starts to be difficult to have constructive conversations because their feelings are too emotional. Because something personal just didn't hit for them and they get stuck there. I say that from experience. I think I scored, like, when I scored 1 or 2 episodes of JoJo's a 0. Like, I don't want to fucking talk about it. They can just stop their shitty killing animals to make it shocking. It's not funny anymore. It's not just and then I just don't want to talk about it. I can't talk about it. I'm not gonna argue with you about it. That's just how I feel. That kind of energy, you know? So you can listen to someone's, I can read and acknowledge his opinion, but I won't really talk to him about it because those are valid feelings, but there's not really much to discuss, if that makes sense. Okay, Gabriel. To me, Dragon Ball Super is very special. Not necessarily because it's my favorite, but because it got a lot of my friends into watching anime. I enjoyed the first 2 Super movies and was really happy to get more Dragon Ball content, but when the anime came out, I was disappointed by the poor animation and how dragged out it felt. Because of that, I skipped the episodes that covered the movies and I just watched the recap videos to see what changed. The Universe 6 tournament arc was okay. I enjoyed it and I thought it was a decent place to start watching DBS after skipping the first 2 arcs. The Goku Black arc had potential, but was a bit of a letdown. I still enjoyed it, but it could have been done better, especially the ending. The Tournament of Power had its ups and downs, but it was the best arc for me. My friends and I did proper watch parties for a lot of episodes, which made it a really fun experience. And I think that's why people feel differently than me about a lot of parts because they were having more fun. I don't know if you were, you had your get together, or I don't know. When you're in a group setting, watching football is more fun. It's watching anything, it just enhances the experience. Live streams were often the problem is with live streams, they were sometimes more fun in one sense, but I also kind of liked it when I could watch it by myself because I feel like when you had a watch party when the episodes were airing, no one had the pre-existing feelings. And when I was watching it for the first time, I kind of often, people had the expectations of my reactions. And when it didn't go a certain way, like, there would be immediate discussion rather than reflection. Because a discussion with someone that has a different, like a vantage point, not a different perspective, you could watch the same movie at the same time together, and obviously both people will have different perspectives. But the difference between like any anime fandom is that if they've seen the story before, they have had 100 discussions with 100 different people. They've watched 100 different reactors, and they have an idea of what the reaction that they're now watching should look like. And oftentimes I just think that they're better and smarter, and they're correct in a sense, and that any other experience is like, well, you just don't get it. Let me explain it to you. So live watch streams were fun when I was enjoying it, but when I wasn't, when I was trying to like, when I was having my own, in that sense, I'm very glad that there were certain parts later I could just watch by myself, because I could give my feelings, think about it, and just not have to defend them in the moment, you know? Because sometimes when you're immediately put on the defense, your heels dig in deeper, and then it makes the experience, it can make the experience better when it's fun, but worse when it's better. Hi, No Limits. The downs for me were, so the Tournament of Power had its ups and downs, but it was the best arc. My friends and I did watch parties for a lot of episodes. I lost it. Let me highlight. Okay, which made it a really fun experience. The downs were the dragging, the time wasting, and the fact that some Universe fighters were trash and annoying. Universe 2 with the Maho Shoujo girls was annoying, especially when watching with my friends. Because there was a lot of testosterone going around. Beer. Sorry, I'm joking. The Ups was Ultra Instinct. It was so cool. I got my friends and me incredibly hyped when we watched it together. The animation in some of those episodes were epic and fun to watch. I really enjoyed both Broly and the superhero movies. I watched both of them in the theater. I don't know if you've already mentioned it, or when you're going to watch Abridged. I only heard you mention it, that you want to watch it, but that's what I'm waiting for the most if you decide to do it. I do want to do it. A little off topic, but I wanted to say that before you started reacting to Dragon Ball, I was a Patreon member for a while. At the time, I'd stopped watching reactions on Patreon for about half a year, so I decided to unsubscribe. Right before I actually canceled, I checked your latest upload and saw it was your first reaction to Dragon Ball. I decided to watch it. I really enjoyed it, and it's the exact reason I stayed. And started playing Waifu Wars, so that's another reason for me to love Dragon Ball. I'm curious, you were a patron, and I'm wondering, like, what did you watch at first? And then I obviously finished that, and you stuck around for a while, but then I didn't pick up anything that you were also interested in. So, but then obviously, thankfully, hey, Dragon Ball. Just so you know, wait, I wasn't even in a DB community, but I used to talk weekly in a Diablo 2 community about DB Super. Okay. Joan says, I DM'd you some of my thoughts about the movies, so this is going to be more about the anime. So let me read this first, and then I'll get to the DMs. And we're definitely going to do a part 2. And we also I need to react to a bunch of things that people send, and Dragon Ball Abridged. I want to do Dragon Ball Abridged live, but it's still Dragon Ball content. So that same company can still suspend me for it. So I'm a little bit worried, but we can try. I'll think about it. I don't know yet. How's your day going, No Limits? Okay, Joan says, I'll try to sum up. Let's just say Super was kind of an experience. Whether good or bad would depend on the episode I was watching that week. I think DBS has really high highs, but also the lowest of the lows for the franchise. That's how I think of Super. A very inconsistent series, inclining more to the bad side than the good. One episode, I would like what I'm watching, and the next, not so much. And the next, I'd hate, and the cycle would repeat. It's sad because no consistency. It's sad because I genuinely love so many concepts and just the whole idea about the universes and how it massively expands what we know of Dragon Ball. It's so cool. I agree. But sadly, like most have said, it's the execution is done poorly most of the time. One thing I'm happy with Super though is that its existence brought Dragon Ball again to the minds of people, introduced them. It introduced DB to a new generation and encouraged many to experience the story from the beginning for the first time or just rewatch it to catch up. It made possible that we get new movies and stuff, so I'm happy that it existed. I hope they learn from their mistakes, and I'm praying that whatever Toei is cooking this time with the remaster is good because it'd be so sad to have the same story done wrong again. Mm, let me read Joan's thoughts and then I'll do my Japanese lesson. Okay, first up Superhero and Broly. I finally got time to write my thoughts on these movies, and watching your reaction, I could confirm these are my favorite Dragon Ball movies too. Like you said in your reaction, one of my favorite things in anime are interactions between characters, and I really love that aspect in these movies. Like in Broly, those little scenes of Goku interacting and just laughing when asking Bulma's age and making fun of her for using the Dragon Balls. Wait a minute, that was Goku? Because Piccolo also did that. Or him playing with the snow, or the scene of Goku intense breathing at that Frieza Force ship. That feels so him. Or Piccolo and Superhero interacting with people is so funny. The way he holds his phone, like that gives so much depth to characters, little details, and the fact that people randomly started giving him plushies at one point as thanks, and he doesn't know why, but then it became a whole thing, and now he has a bunch of plushies and he doesn't understand why. Like stuff like that is hilarious. And I feel that was really missing in a lot of Super. Or at least it wasn't portrayed as natural as this was. You can feel Toriyama's involvement more, even in the dialogue and action of these movies. Here I go a bit more detail about Superhero. Before this movie, I felt Super was kind of stuck in those 10 years of defeating Boo and the final Z episodes, and that made me sad because for me, one of the favorite aspects of Dragon Ball was seeing the pass of time and the story and the characters, seeing the next generation continue to grow alongside the main cast. Whenever there was a time skip during your DBZ reactions, I get excited for you to see the new characters and old ones change and the new designs, especially in Boo, where Gohan grows up and we get introduced to many new characters. We had that whole school arc that was so cute. Um, and we even got a mini arc just spending time and adjusting to all the changes. The movie finally gave me that feeling again, and we get to see a more grown up Pan, and even a more grown up Pan. Isn't she? Oh, wait, I was thinking of GT Pan. That's so we got baby Pan in Super, and so she's obviously more grown up from Super Pan. I was thinking GT, sorry. But yeah, this is canon grown up Pan. The movie finally gave me that feeling again, and we got to see a more grown up Pan and even teen Goten and Trunks. Love that. And Trunks looked so much better. Oh my god. Which, when Super was first announced, I wanted to see more of. Also, I feel like it really continues with the original plot of letting the next generation handle things. That was set during the Cell arc and a bit in Boo. I want to see more of that. More adventures of the next generation. More of Pan, Gohan, Goten, and Trunks. As teenagers, Oob too. This movie gave me hope for the future of the franchise. I would kind of like it if I don't know how they would write it though, but Goku training with the gods and stuff, like I'm glad it's not so in the movie it was just not easy to contact them so they couldn't come help. But at this point they are so strong. They can't come to Earth's rescue every, so it was a really good way to showcase why the next generation should stay strong. It kind of reminds me of that thing about Ooh, strong people make good times make weak people make bad times make strong people make. So my point is, like, you have a generation that works really, really hard to fight for peace and blah blah blah, and then the next generation just kind of like, ah, there's peace now. I don't need to work hard. I don't need to try. I don't need to. And then, oh shit, you do. Like, the older generation won't always be there to help you. So I think for that reason, um, and I say this very lightly, it's very difficult, but for that reason, I think that superheroes might be my favorite movie because, like, I think I want to see more movies with Goku and Vegeta, but they are on another level now. You know, I don't. Beerus is a god. I don't judge him the same way I judge Frieza or any other. Like, he's. I don't. I should take a time and write out my thoughts and feelings on that. But Goku and Vegeta, they have new adventures that go past the borders of Earth now. That's the movies I want to see for them. But I still here and there want to see some Earth stuff, you know, and what they're doing and how they're handling their problems without their saviors that are constantly going to come back and, you know, what makes him a god? Well, that's a whole conversation that we can have that we touched on in manga discussions. There's a hierarchy, right? And it was a little bit, at first I think it was a little bit not perfectly expanding because Toriyama never planned all of this to go so far, right? But he's a fantastic writer, so where he started and where it ended, you can still see there's this, well, there's a hierarchy, and we don't know what makes someone a god. Or I told you my theory is that the gods were just, at one point they were people like Goku and Vegeta on their own planets, then just got stronger and stronger and stronger, and they've lived for so long they forgot that they used to be, you know, just another. I don't know, but the fact that someone like Goku and Vegeta, like, they can get as strong as gods, even Topo, give that like a person like that 1,000 years, like, I mean, you get shit like Dragon Balls and stuff that can keep people young and keep people alive, wishes that can make you immortal. I think they were, most of the gods that have established this hierarchy were just people that forgot. Like, it's not that difficult to imagine. I don't remember what I was doing at 10 years old exactly. Like, give 1,000 years of being immortal, of being full of yourself, no one can challenge you, creating this personal lore. You'll probably imagine in your mind when you arrive, there's like a backtrack playing, like you are so. I think the gods, the current system, it's like, think about hierarchies in the world. We have the civilians, we have the governments, we have a royalty where people were just born into royalty. Like, go back far enough, everyone used to be the same, but somewhere along the lines we created hierarchies, and we had good reasons for it, right? We wanted society to kind of flow, and you need a leader, you need a helmsman, you need, like, when you have a boat, you have to have a crew, and each has to have their specific designation. But now take that formula of having a crew, a captain, a helmsman, a map person, and you apply that to society that created royalty and governments and this and that. Give it 1,000 years, a couple of dictators. In Egypt, the people called themselves gods. the pharaohs and whatever. Give that kind of mentality 1,000 years. I don't know. It's easy for them to be stronger than the gods. Just fuse and become Vegito. Hey, don't you start talking and confusing us. I don't even know how much you know about Dragon Ball. I don't know. I am already. I thought this video would be 3 hours max. Now it's 14 hours. I can't deal with people just talking shit for the sake of talking shit. After Joan, there are 5 messages left. 3 short and 2 long. One of them is Odinoko's that has been sent in part with Soto's and Dark Shadow's messages in between. We can continue on Sunday. I have a space. I don't want to end too late. I don't want to... There's no One Piece manga on Sunday. So we have a lot of time on Sunday to continue part 2 and react to all the videos that were sent. How many videos were sent? Hi, Walid. When did you get here? Oh, there. Plus, it gives people some time to think about everything that was said here today. And if they want to add more thoughts or responses, they can DM. They can chat about it in the anime chat. And yeah, if like back and forth discussions are interesting, you can always let me know, hey, you might want to read through that discussion, because I did skip a discussion from earlier because I wanted to focus on the tagged messages. But if there are actual like back and forth discussions between people. Do you stream always around the same time as today? I usually stream Friday, Saturday, Sunday. On a Friday, it's around the same time, if not earlier. And then on a Saturday and Sunday, I start at 2-ish. So that's about 4 hours earlier. But I mostly play games now. I read Dragon Ball Super manga on a Saturday though, in the first hour. Within the first hour of the stream, I start reading Dragon Ball Super. But just take a look on my Twitch page. There should be a link to the schedule. So, wait, actually... There you go. You can take a look there. The time is in 2 p.m. SAST, and if I make any changes, well, it doesn't change much. Just like 15 to 20 minutes late often. Always. Sorry. Yasin, is there gonna be Hunter x Hunter reactions on Sunday? No, then, oh no, I forgot I should do Hunter x Hunter when I don't have, oh no, what am I gonna do? Uh-oh. What if I do 1 or 2 chapters of Hunter x Hunter on Friday before Genshin? I will confirm like tomorrow night. I am going to skip DBS next Saturday to react to the Hulk 2003. But I think I can do it before. So then I start my stream at like 6:15 on Friday. Just 30 minutes of chill and chat. 6:15. Okay, 7 to 8:30 we do Hunter x Hunter, and then 9, 10, 11, 12 we do 4 hours of Genshin still. It'll never work out that perfectly, but I think I can do Friday. But I will confirm with you everything. Okay, so for shit. Okay. Thank you for watching. There will be a part 2, and I have a lot of like videos and things to react to still, game trailers, or I'm not sure, things that people sent. So I'll post part 2 as soon as I can. Thank you for everyone's answers, and I look forward to the comments and more thoughts on Sunday. Bye.